The Wandering Soul Planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451, Sacrificing One's Life to Pass On Skills. If not according to common sense, then what should I follow? Feifei couldn't help but ask anxiously. You can only follow the new method I have thought of recently. This new method is that you must eat me, and you must eat me completely and thoroughly, without leaving any, the old monster said in a shocking way. Feifei was stunned by the old monster's fearless self-sacrifice spirit of if I don't go to hell, who will go to hell? After thinking about it, Feifei felt complicated and asked anxiously, can I learn your kung fu without eating you? Unexpectedly, the old monster refused and said, no, frowning. Feifei felt that this old monster was a little incredible. Suddenly, she remembered that she had been with him for such a long time, but she didn't even know his honorific name. Now he was going to hand over his life to her, and in such an incredible and cruel way. It was really wrong. So, Feifei asked with a serious expression, Master, I am really ashamed. I have been with you for so long and I still don't know your name. Can you tell me about this little thing who is about to become your last disciple? In addition, I don't know what kind of kung fu you are going to teach me. The old monster smiled and said, my name is Electric Run. The kung fu I am going to teach you is to let you store electrical energy in your body, so that you can use the electrical energy in your body to shock your opponents and pray at will. So it's this kind of kung fu. Feifei was very shocked after hearing this, and then he thought about it and immediately realized, this is reasonable. All along, the thing that has given me the most headache and fear is not this guy's magical electric shock. Now he is going to sacrifice his life and give me his treasure at the bottom of the box. This shows how sincere he is and how much he values me. I should be very moved. Why don't I feel anything at all? Am I too bad, or have I never been a person who doesn't know how to be grateful? Although I am no longer a human now. Well, that's not right. Maybe it's because I served this old monster for a while and made him feel comfortable and touched, so, that's not right either. Although I was forced to serve him, he didn't have to make such a big sacrifice. In fact, the truth should be what I told him. Then, Feifei thought again, it's a blessing to be able to obtain such powerful kung fu. Not only can it be used to attack opponents, but also to defend myself. If I have this skill, I won't be afraid wherever I go in the future. And I don't have to be a shameful turtle all the time. But can I really accept this huge gift from the old monster with peace of mind? What should I do? Just when Feifei was daydreaming and hesitant, the old monster Dian Ben Wang said again, look at my memory, I almost forgot the most important thing. Only after you eat me whole, will your body slowly generate your own electrical energy, and by that time, I will be no longer in this world. So I will teach you in advance how to use the electrical energy in your body and how to exert the maximum power of electric shock. You kid, you must listen carefully and remember it. The specific method, that is, when using the formula, first concentrate on your dantian, and then use your limbs to lead. Do you hear it clearly, Master? I heard it clearly, and I will definitely remember this important formula. Otherwise, I will recite it to you in person. Feifei answered immediately, and then recited all the methods of how to use electric shock that he had just heard. After listening to Feifei reciting the formula, the old monster said, okay, now that you know the formula, don't hesitate or feel embarrassed. This is the last and most important decision I've made in my life, and I will never change it. You are already my last disciple, so now you can eat your master with confidence. Feifei was horrified when the old monster said this. I've heard that the parasites were popular in the past, but that was a metaphor, not a real parasite, and I'm really doing it. I'm also going to eat this old monster, my current master, all of it. I'm probably the most powerful and shameless parasite in the universe. However, I was forced by my master himself, and I didn't ask to do this, so it's not despicable, right? However, when the old monster saw Feifei was still not speaking, he shouted anxiously, you kid, why are you still dithering? Hurry up and speak. You don't have to worry about anything. It's my master who told you to eat, so it's not like you're eating me. Master, I can be your last disciple, but you don't have to sacrifice yourself. Even if you don't teach me any kung fu, I won't blame you. Why do you have to treat yourself like this? As the saying goes, it's better to live a miserable life than to die a good death. You can just live one day at a time. What's more, you can just let me go and let me go. As soon as the voice fell, Feifei was so moved that she burst into tears. You kid, why are you crying while talking? You are so useless. Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? This is called womanly kindness. You will have no future, the old monster said stubbornly. Master, you are so kind to me. I don't know how to thank you now. I have no way to repay you. Before I eat you, let me kowtow to you 3 times, no, 9 times. As soon as the voice fell, Feifei kowtowed to the old monster 9 times in a row. Hey, you kid, you have so many tricks. Now, is it alright? You have said your words of thanks and kowtowed, can you start eating me? The old monster urged impatiently. Oh, what a weird and wonderful master, really worthy of being called an old monster. Is there anyone in the world who is so eager to die? I'm afraid there is no one like him. Then he thought again, since it is difficult to disobey the master's order, I will obey it. I hope the master will not suffer much pain. Then Feifei asked the old monster, Master, where should I bite you first? Tisk, I told you to eat, but you are still picky. Bite it casually, eat it casually, you can bite any part you want, the old monster said impatiently. No, master, you misunderstood. What I meant was that I could bite your fatal spot first and kill you. That way, when I eat your flesh, you won't feel any pain, Feifei explained quickly. Oh, so that's what you mean, the old monster sighed deeply and said, what bothers me is that there is almost no fatal spot on my body. There is no other way. Just bite it. I am not afraid of pain. Don't you mean that you don't even have a piece of dead flesh like your buttocks? Feifei asked curiously. What dead flesh on your buttocks? Just treat my whole body as dead flesh on my buttocks. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and bite. I am tired of living. The old monster really has a fearless and brave spirit, which really makes Feifei admire him. Chapter 452 Electric Shock Test. Then I, your disciple, will start to eat you. Master, my good master, if you feel that the pain is really unbearable, then you can make a sound, even if you scream hard. After saying that, Feifei bit the part of the old monster's body that was closest to him. With a scream of ouch, the old monster shivered in pain and sighed. I never thought that this bite would hurt so much. When Feifei heard the old monster screaming in pain, he hurriedly swallowed the first bite of the master's meat that came into his mouth, and asked anxiously, Master, do you want me to stop the action? Unexpectedly, the old monster said, No need to stop, continue eating me. I can hold on. By the way, you took a bite of me just now, how did you like it? Feifei said in a daze. I heard you scream, and I swallowed it into my stomach in one gulp. I didn't have time to taste it, the old monster said angrily. If you put the food in your mouth but don't chew it, isn't it equivalent to eating in vain? The next bite, you must tell me what the meat on master's body tastes like. You can't just eat it blindly. Do you understand? Yes, master, I know. After that, Feifei bit off another bite of meat near the first bite, chewed it in his mouth, and then swallowed it into his stomach, and then said, Master, your meat tastes like pepper. I mean, it tastes not much different from spicy tofu. That's right, the old monster said while enduring the pain. Then take a bite from another place on master's body to try it and see what it tastes like. Okay. Master, I'll do it. As soon as the voice fell, Feifei took a bite from another place on the old monster's body like a hungry wolf, chewed it in his mouth for several times, and then swallowed it into his stomach, saying, Master, this piece of meat of yours is sweet and sour and delicious. I didn't expect that your whole body is a treasure, comparable to the manhunt banquet, and it's delicious everywhere. Hey, then you kid, eat quickly, don't show off anymore. The old monster sighed secretly. This is my fate. In this way, Feifei enjoyed his manhunt banquet faster and faster, while the old monster's breathing became lower and lower, and finally fainted from the pain, and never woke up again. On the contrary, Feifei felt more and more energetic the more he ate. It took him 5 days to eat up the old monster master. At this time, he felt that he had endless strength. Gradually, he found that his whole body was emitting blue arcs of light, which made him ecstatic, dancing with joy, and eager to try. Soon, he found the target of the electric shock. Coincidentally, when he was dancing with 4 legs and joy, he accidentally bumped into a huge lake clam nearby. It happened that the lake clam just opened its shell. When Feifei broke into the clam shell, The lake clam immediately closed like a conditioned reflex and clamped Feifei's body. Seeing that he was caught by this annoying clam again, Feifei couldn't help but get angry. He took this opportunity to verify the effect of electric shock, so he gave the clam an electric shock without hesitation. However, he had no experience in using electric shock for the first time, and he didn't control the heat well. As a result, the unfortunate clam was electrocuted into a black mess, and it was accidentally burned. Fortunately, Feifei himself was fine. This time, he experienced the powerful power of the electric shock of this old monster Dion Benwen. And he couldn't help but be amazed. Since he had the ability to electrocute, Feifei found that his ability to withstand pressure underwater has also been greatly improved. Now, even if he dives to the deepest part of the lake, about 2,000 meters underwater, he doesn't feel any discomfort, which makes him surprised and happy. As he dived deeper and deeper, he saw more and more strange and interesting things. Obviously, the lake bottom world is very different from the underwater world, especially on this very unique alien planet. Feifei couldn't imagine it before. When he came to a lake bottom jungle full of human-hand underwater plants, it was like entering a blue dream world. In fact, it should be pitch black here, but somehow, from the moment he entered here, it seemed to suddenly become a little brighter, especially the human-hand plants closer to him, the brighter they were. At first, he was puzzled, but later when he suddenly approached the human-hand plant closest to him, the underwater plant actually emitted blue sparks, so he thought it might be caused by the strong electric current on his body. Then, what surprised Feifei even more was that not far away, there was actually a different human hand waving at him, as if calling him over, wanting to have a good talk with him. After Feifei swam over with curiosity and a little puzzled, the strange hand actually spoke in the Mandarin of lake bottom fish. "Friend, where are you from?" Although he was mentally prepared in advance, Feifei was still very surprised, so he answered in the same language, "I am a turtle, I came down from the lake, and I want to visit you." The strange hand was also surprised and said, I didn't expect that you came down from such a high place. It is said that almost no one who comes down from such a high place will return alive. Didn't you consider what the consequences would be? I thought about it a long time ago, and I made full preparations before I dared to come down," Feifei said calmly. So that's the case. So you are not a simple character. Can you let me try how capable you are?" the strange hand said sarcastically. "How do you test it?" Feifei asked puzzled. "Let me shock you and see if you can bear it," the exotic hand said coldly. No way, you are not so cold and heartless, are you? I just came down from above for a trip, there is no need to endure such a big test, right?" Feifei had just acquired the ability to shock people, and was not confident enough about himself. He did not know what level he was at, and was afraid of being at a disadvantage, nor did he want to end up hurting both sides. Therefore, he was unwilling to fight with strange monsters whose details he did not know easily, and such things were avoided as much as possible. Unexpectedly, the weird hand did not give Feifei any face and completely rejected Feifei's reasonable request. "No, any alien creature that breaks into my territory must accept my experimental requirements. Besides, do you think you can run away without my permission after entering my territory?" After hearing this guy's boastful words, Feifei couldn't help but said with a smile, "I want to leave here. Is there anything that is difficult to stop me?" As soon as the voice fell, Feifei paddled downward with all four legs, immediately took off into the air, and swam upstream quickly. Unexpectedly, the weird hand was faster than him. With a splash, the weird hand flew up. However, to Feifei's surprise, there was a huge monster fish hidden under the weird hand, which opened its bloody mouth and bit Feifei. At the same time, the weird hand threw a dazzling blue lightning at Feifei, which immediately made Feifei tremble, tingle and numb all over, unable to move. Chapter 453 Hesitation. Feifei never expected that he would be shocked again not long after he mastered the skill of electric shock. This made him lose face and indignant. He thought, "It's not that I am not as good as you, but I don't want to fight with you. If I really fight with you, I am not afraid of you." And the weird hand, no, it should be called weird hand fish, said proudly at this time, "See if you dare to escape. Without the king's order, you can't go anywhere." Who knows? Feifei was not convinced at all and said, "This doesn't count. If you have the ability, you can fight me again." Unexpectedly, the weird hand fish responded very straightforwardly, "Why? You want to compete with me in electric shock? Well, I will agree to it." so that you will admit defeat with conviction." Seeing that the other party actually agreed to his challenge, Feifei was secretly happy and decided to give his opponent a taste of his own medicine. Soon, Feifei recovered and breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the other party with full concentration and said, "I'm ready. Can we start?" Before he finished speaking, he secretly accumulated enough electricity to prepare to give the other party a thunderous blow. The weird handfish said okay. As soon as the voice fell, he quickly attacked, but unexpectedly, Feifei's electric shock had already struck the weird handfish all over the body. The arcs on its body flashed dazzlingly. Almost at the same time, the current emitted by the weird handfish also hit Feifei, emitting almost the same dazzling light. In the end, both sides felt the power of the other side's electric shock and were stunned by the electric shock. Although it was the second time that Feifei suffered the other side's electric shock, he was surprised to find that this time it seemed to be a little better than before. Although it was not particularly obvious, it at least showed that his ability to resist electric shock had improved, which made him overjoyed. On the contrary, the weird handfish felt bad. After all, it had not encountered such a powerful opponent as Feifei for a long time. This made it feel very painful and depressed. It did not expect that this electric shock master would actually fight a tie with this seemingly unimportant alien creature. But just when Feifei and the weird handfish could not do anything to each other, and both were unable to move, making both sides extremely embarrassed, suddenly, another weird handfish swam from nowhere. The later one was almost the same size as the previous one, but the shape was slightly different. When Feifei saw it, he was immediately shocked and thought, "My God! I can't even deal with one weird handfish, and now there is another one. Isn't this going to kill me?" Unexpectedly, the new weird handfish did not help the previous weird handfish to attack Feifei directly. Instead, it sent out a series of dazzling blue arcs to hit the previous weird handfish. In a blink of an eye, it burned it into charcoal, which frightened Feifei. After the new weird handfish killed the old weird handfish, it seemed to be very proud of itself. Then it talked to Feifei in a torrent of words as if talking to itself. "Did you fall from above by chance? I suspect that you were sent by God to help me. Thank you for helping me get rid of a long-time rival. It seems that you are quite capable. You can even fight him to draw. You two attacked each other almost at the same time. Otherwise I would not have had this opportunity. If you still stayed here, you would be a big threat to me. However, I would not kill you. After all, you have helped me. No matter what the reason is, I should be grateful to you. Well, I decided to let you go." As soon as he finished speaking, the new weird handfish touched Feifei's turtle shell with a weird hand on his back. Feifei suddenly felt that he was alive again. He stretched his muscles and bones and moved freely again. So Feifei said to the new weird handfish, "Thank you for saving me. I will leave now." Wait a minute, but before Feifei turned to leave, the new exotic handfish called Feifei and said, "Can you tell me what happened between you and him?" So Feifei briefly told the new exotic handfish about the whole story. The new exotic handfish nodded slightly thoughtfully, and then waved its exotic hand again to ask Feifei to leave. Through this thrilling encounter, Feifei realized that in this dangerous underwater world, there are probably many monsters like his master who have the ability to shock. This kind of shocking skill on land and shallow water is common in the deep water of the lake. Feifei couldn't help but feel a lot of emotion. Feifei thought, "Since I have accidentally obtained this ability now, I can do everything on land and shallow water. Do I still need to continue exploring in deep water?" At this time, he couldn't help but feel a dilemma. He wanted to continue traveling and exploring, but he was afraid of encountering such a big danger again. However, just as Feifei was hesitating to move forward, danger came to him. A 6 to 7 meter long underwater black dragon snake suddenly appeared from a distance of 180 meters ahead, and slowly swam towards Feifei, which frightened Feifei. The horror scene of a huge black dragon snake swallowing him and almost killing him was still vivid in his mind. Although the black dragon snake he was facing now was much smaller than the last one, he definitely did not dare to take it lightly, because he knew that underwater creatures such as black dragon snakes were very aggressive. Although Feifei knew how powerful the black dragon snake was, he was unwilling to continue to attack it suddenly. After all, the other party had not yet launched an attack on him, and he did not know whether the other party had companions and backup. He would not take the initiative to attack unless it was absolutely necessary. No one wanted to poke a hornet's nest because he was not sure whether the electrical energy in his body was inexhaustible, and he also did not know how much backup the other party had. The best way for now was to hide. As expected, when Feifei had just finished hiding, she saw that the black dragon snake suddenly stopped, and in the blink of an eye, two larger black dragon snakes came. One was 8 meters long, and the other was more than 9 meters long. After the latter two met the first one, they actually swam towards the place where Feifei was hiding. Feifei was shocked and thought, could it be that I was exposed? Are these black dragon snakes here to cause trouble for me? With such doubts, Feifei dared not move at all, and held his breath, staring at the 3 black dragon snakes without blinking, closely watching their every move. Soon, the 3 black dragon snakes of different sizes swam past the place where he was hiding. It turned out that these guys were not coming towards Feifei, but were just passing by, so that Feifei would be relieved. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 forum, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 forum, 1 look. Soon after the 3 guys passed by, Feifei crawled out from his hiding place and continued to swim forward. Since this was a deep canyon at the bottom of the lake, there was no other way to go except forward or backward, so Feifei had no choice but to swim forward. But what he never expected was that soon, 4 or 5 more black dragon snakes swam over in front of him, about the same size as the previous ones, and Feifei had to hide again. Chapter 454, Trouble Again. In this way, Feifei hid more than 10 times in succession and let dozens of black dragon snakes go. She couldn't help wondering, where are so many black dragon snakes going? Are they going to the temple fair? What is the place in front? Is it another nest of black dragon snakes? If so, then am I going to die? If I swim forward, I may break into the nest of black dragon snakes. If I swim backward, I may encounter the temple fair of black dragon snakes. What should I do? After thinking about it, I couldn't make up my mind for a long time. Finally, Feifei decided to continue to move forward. There will be dangers in exploring any place at any time. You can't be afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind, right? What's more, I now have a new self-defense weapon, electric shock, which can still play a role at a critical moment. Thinking of this, Feifei became more determined to continue to explore the dragon palace at the bottom of the lake. Fortunately, in the next hour, Feifei did not encounter black dragon snakes again, and couldn't help feeling a little strange. The canyon at the bottom of the lake was winding and continued to extend forward. Soon, it reached the fork in the canyon. There were 3 roads in front of it, forcing Feifei to choose one of them. The 2 roads on the left and right were extremely dark, and only the middle road was slightly brighter, so Feifei decided to take the middle road. Who knew that after walking on this road for about half an hour, a very strange scene shocked Feifei. There were many 2-headed fish and 3-headed fish that looked like cats and dogs. The 2-headed fish had cat-like heads, the 3-headed fish had dog-like heads, and a few 2-headed fish had 1 cat-like head and 1 dog-like head. They were not gathering here or dancing here, but building a big project here, and they were spinning silk like silkworms, and it was the kind of very transparent silk. What were they spinning for? Feifei would soon understand their intention to do so. Feifei opened his eyes wide and looked around carefully. Although the light was dim, he could vaguely see that there were transparent threads like spider webs woven between the rocks around. He really couldn't understand what their purpose was. Could it be that these transparent threads were used to net fish or hunt other creatures? Would this be useful? Unexpectedly, the answer came soon. Just as Feifei was looking at the transparent threads and lost in thought, the residents here suddenly became restless from far to near. What happened? In a blink of an eye, 7 or 8 black dragon snakes suddenly appeared in front of them and pounced on the 2-headed fish and 3-headed fish here, scaring these multi-headed fish to flee for their lives. The black dragon snakes chased these strange fish relentlessly, and they hit the transparent silk nets woven by these multi-headed fish without paying attention. Who knew that the black dragon snakes would spark as soon as they touched these transparent silk nets, and at the same time, blue glowing arcs suddenly appeared and hit the black dragon snakes that touched the nets, making the black dragon snakes scream and howl, and soon they were silent. It was estimated that they were either stunned or electrocuted to death. Feifei finally understood the real purpose of the transparent mesh spitting out silk from the mouths of these 2-headed and 3-headed fish. It turned out that this transparent mesh was a defensive electric grid. The remaining 4 or 5 black dragon snakes stopped chasing their companions when they saw them being killed by the net. They turned around in place to see if there were any fish that slipped through the net. Suddenly, one of the black dragon snakes noticed that there was a unique creature like Feifei here. It immediately became interested and rushed towards Feifei with great momentum. 2 other black dragon snakes followed closely behind. Seeing this scene, Feifei was stunned. He immediately accumulated the electricity in his body to prepare for the battle. He thought to himself, "Oh, you think I'm easy to bully, right? Don't be afraid of death, just come over. I'll make sure you don't come back later." In the blink of an eye, the first black dragon snake pounced in front of Feifei. Feifei did not make any fancy moves. She just waved one of her front legs lightly. Suddenly, the black dragon snake that was charging in front of her was covered with arcs of electricity and sparks flew everywhere. A painful scream spread in all directions. Feifei actually used a lot of electricity to shock this time. How could this poor black dragon snake who didn't know how to live or die bear it? In less than 3 seconds, this black dragon snake died. The 2 black dragon snakes that followed were immediately scared and stopped. Then they turned around and ran back, and the remaining 2 black dragon snakes left the bodies of the 4 companions who died of electrocution and ran away with their tails between their legs. After the black dragon snakes ran away, the group of 2-headed fish and 3-headed fish that were hiding all ran out and began to live freely and harmoniously again. When Feifei saw that he had basically finished his tour here, he wanted to leave, but he didn't want to continue swimming forward, because he just found that those black dragon snakes were coming from the front. It was estimated that the black dragon snake's lair was not far ahead. Continuing forward would be tantamount to suicide. Even if his self-defense ability was very strong, 1 punch can't beat 4 hands, and a hero can't fight a pack of wolves, so it's better not to take risks. With this thought, Feifei turned around and returned along the original road, preparing to return to the fork in the road and go to the other 2 roads to continue exploring. Unexpectedly, halfway through, there were 30 or 40 black dragon snakes coming towards him, and they were coming very fast. Feifei wanted to avoid it, but it was too late. He had to bite the bullet and send a thunder strike to the 5 black dragon snakes running in front, accumulating almost all the electrical energy in his body and stimulating it all. He saw arcs and sparks in front of him, instantly illuminating the surrounding dozens or hundreds of square meters, and immediately knocked out and killed the 3 unlucky black dragon snakes. This sudden change immediately frightened the other black dragon snakes that followed closely behind. They stopped involuntarily and stared in amazement at Feifei, the evil star that appeared out of nowhere. Feifei was also stunned by how fast his own power improved. He stood there at a loss, but he quickly came to his senses, calmed himself, stared at the other party, and prepared to give it another head-on blow. Unexpectedly, at this time, a large black dragon snake more than 10 meters long swam out from the group of black dragon snakes in front of him. It was estimated that this guy might be the leader of this group of black dragon snakes. The big black dragon snake swam to 5 or 6 meters in front of Feifei and stopped. It stared at Feifei with its big eyes and said, "Friend, where are you from? Why are you killing my brothers?" Feifei was stunned when he heard it, and explained, "Didn't you want to attack me just now? I was just defending myself." "What? We were attacking you just now." The leader of the black dragon snakes was furious when he heard it. "How is this possible? How could my brothers attack you, an unknown creature that came out of nowhere, without my order? Friend, isn't your excuse too naive and ridiculous? So, am I wrong?" Feifei felt a little confused. He couldn't be sure whether what the leader of the black dragon snake said was a lie. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum, one forum. Of course, my friend, you did misunderstand us. Look, since you have caused us such a huge loss, how do you plan to compensate us? No one expected that the black dragon snake leader would say this. Chapter 455, Pretending to Surrender. Feifei didn't understand the meaning of what the black dragon snake leader said, so he asked, "Then what do you want?" Unexpectedly, the black dragon snake leader's eyes rolled around, and he said in a gloomy tone, "Hey, it depends on whether you are sincere." Feifei still said puzzledly, "Then tell me, what do you want me to do to show my sincerity?" After thinking for a while, the black dragon snake leader said, "Unless you join us, or teach us all your electric shock skills, then you will be sincere." Feifei was shocked when he heard this, frowned, and asked tentatively, "What if I don't want to?" The leader of the black dragon snakes glared at Feifei slyly and said, "Then don't blame me for being rude." Before he finished speaking, Feifei felt a subtle wave of water coming towards him from behind. Suddenly, he felt cheated. When he turned around to look, a black shadow shone down on him from behind. Suddenly, everything went dark in front of his eyes, followed by a strong fishy smell. At the same time, a powerful suction force came from behind, sucking Feifei into the dark abyss. Feifei immediately realized that he was attacked from behind by a huge black dragon snake and swallowed into its stomach. He was horrified. The black dragon snake leader in front of him was just diverting his attention in order to cover the sneak attack of the big black dragon snake behind him. How insidious and cunning. So Feifei did not hesitate and immediately sent high voltage current around him to shock the guy who attacked him. Suddenly, the strong suction disappeared, but the darkness did not disappear. Feifei had to discharge again. Suddenly, he felt a strong high voltage current igniting a fire. He immediately retracted his head and limbs into the turtle shell, but the fire only lasted for a few seconds in the water before it went out. Seeing this, Feifei was about to stick his head out of the turtle shell to see what was going on, but suddenly he heard a pop and a heavy object hit Feifei's turtle shell hard on the back, causing him to almost faint from the pain. What was going on? It turned out that the leader of the Oolong snakes saw that Feifei was attacked by one of his generals and his trick was about to succeed, so he couldn't help but be happy. Who knew that even if Feifei was swallowed by the Oolong snake, she would struggle desperately and even send out high voltage current to shock her. Then, the leader of the Oolong snakes saw that his beloved general was burned into charcoal by Feifei's continuous electric shock. He couldn't help but be furious and immediately used his long and thick tail to hit Feifei's turtle back shell viciously. Unexpectedly, the whip of the Oolong snake leader's tail hit Feifei and turned over, and she lay on the ground with her forelegs up. This made Feifei very depressed. She thought, this time, it's troublesome. It's not easy for me to fight. What's more terrible is that the turtle shell on my belly is not as hard as the turtle shell on my back. If the enemy takes advantage of me lying on the ground with my forelegs up, I will be finished. Hey! Why am I so stubborn? I can pretend to surrender and wait for an opportunity to escape later. Thinking of this, Feifei shouted before the second whip of the black dragon snake leader's tail came down, "Stop hitting me, I surrender. I am willing to submit to the king." When the black dragon snake leader heard Feifei's willingness to surrender, he was overjoyed, and quickly retracted his tail that had been swung halfway, and asked, "You monster, have you really decided to surrender to us? Are you lying?" Feifei sighed and said, "There is no way, because the electrical energy in my body is limited. It is not inexhaustible. I am also worried that I will be outnumbered, so I have to surrender to you." Ha ha. The black dragon snake leader couldn't help laughing loudly, and then he uttered arrogantly, "That's great, my team finally has an electric discharge master. I will have more electric discharge masters in the future, and I can dominate the world at the bottom of the lake." Ha. Seeing that the leader of the black dragon snakes was actually willing to surrender, Feifei said, "My king, since I have agreed to join you, we are a family. Then you have to help me up." "I am still lying on the ground with my forelegs up in the air." The leader of the black dragon snakes blinked, stared at Feifei and said, "What you just said is your true words. Can you promise that you will not regret it in the future?" Feifei answered solemnly, "Of course, a gentleman's word is hard to catch up with four snakes." Seeing this, the leader of the black dragon snakes asked again, "Well, what species are you and what is your name?" Feifei thought for a moment and responded, "I belong to the turtle, and my name is Turtle Didion." The leader of the black dragon snakes turned around and said to the two big black dragon snakes behind him, "Gaberjan, Gabareo, the two of you go and help get Didion up. From now on, you will be responsible for taking care of him. If there is any delay, you will be held accountable." As soon as the words fell, the two big black dragon snakes approached Feifei tremblingly. They looked timid and frightened, as if saying, "Brother, now we are family. You must not use your terrible lightning arc to electrocute us." Then, one of the black dragon snakes carefully stretched out its tail to the back of Feifei's turtle shell, pushed hard, and turned Feifei over, allowing Feifei to return to normal, and then immediately retracted its tail, as if afraid that it would be electrocuted by the sudden lightning from Feifei. "Hey, why are you two so scared?" the leader of the black dragon snake asked in confusion. and then said, "Since the hero Turtle Didion has surrendered to us, he is one of us, and he will not use electric shocks to attack you too. Don't you think so?" Turtle Didion hero, before he finished speaking, he turned his head and looked at Feifei and asked, "Of course, unless I'm crazy, otherwise, why would I use electric shocks to attack my own people?" Feifei also agreed. "Look, what did I say? So, in the future, you two must get along well with the hero Turtle Didion, otherwise, if the hero Turtle Didion goes crazy, I can't protect you too." The leader of the Black Dragon Snake actually said this, which shows how passionate he is about Feifei's love for talent. No mistakes in one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum, one look. Gabachan and Gabaraya were so frightened that their whole bodies trembled and they stammered, "My king, can we switch jobs? This job, it's too dangerous." "What? You two are so picky about the jobs assigned to me, my king. I'm really pissed off." The leader of the Black Dragon Snakes was so angry that he was fuming. "Tell me, which job here is not full of life-threatening dangers? Take the 3 advanced team members who were at the front just now. Haven't they sacrificed their precious lives for the glorious cause of our tribe, my king?" "It's precisely because the 5 of our team members were electrocuted to death by the hero Gadidian for no reason, and now they are fine, that we are scared." Gabachan spoke his mind uneasily. Chapter 456, Arrogant and Domineering. "Hey. So what are you two worried about?" The leader of the Black Dragon Snake listened and lectured with a smile. "Wasn't that a misunderstanding just now? The hero Turtle Dian thought we were his enemies, so he acted like that. Now he is one of us, so such a thing will naturally not happen. So is there any need for you two to be afraid?" Gabachan and Gabarao felt embarrassed to be hypocritical after hearing what the leader of the Black Dragon Snake said, but they still had a big shadow in their hearts. At this time, Feifei looked up at the leader of the Black Dragon Snake and asked, "My king, where are we going? Are we going to kill those 2-headed fish and 3-headed fish?" How do you know? Who did you hear it from?" the leader of the Black Dragon Snake asked in surprise. "Do I need to hear this from anyone?" Feifei said disapprovingly. "I just came from there. There are a lot of electric grids there, and I saw several Black Dragon Snakes being electrocuted to death. One of them tried to attack me and was electrocuted to death by me. So, when I saw you rushing towards me just now, I thought you were from that group of Black Dragon Snakes and were here to seek revenge on me, so I rashly attacked you. It turned out to be a misunderstanding." Unexpectedly, the leader of the Black Dragon Snakes felt embarrassed when he heard what Feifei said, and muttered to himself, "Have we been deceived by those damn guys? These damn guys actually used us as their cannon fodder and wanted to set up such a trap to take the opportunity to eliminate us. It's so hateful." Then, he turned to his subordinates and said, "Let's go back. I want to ask them for an explanation. Why did they set a trap to harm us?" As soon as he finished speaking, he led the crowd back, and Feifei naturally followed closely behind. Because Feifei swam too slowly, Gabachan had a headache, and finally had to bite the bullet and let Feifei climb onto a snake's back, just like riding a dragon, and rushed forward with the Black Dragon Snake Gabachan. Almost in the blink of an eye, they came to the fork in the road, then turned right and entered another dark lake tunnel. After walking forward for a long time, they suddenly came to an open area, which was suddenly much brighter. Unexpectedly, there were stars everywhere. A closer look revealed that the twinkling stars were emitted by a very strange underwater creature. Although its brightness was not as bright as the night pearl, it was fortunate that its number was the largest, which was naturally enough to make up for its lack of brightness. What surprised Feifei was that there were many Black Dragon Snakes of all sizes entrenched here. When the leader of the Black Dragon Snakes led his team into this place, almost all the Black Dragon Snakes here locked their eyes on the leader of the Black Dragon Snakes. Suddenly, a big Black Dragon Snake with a huge crocodile head asked with a surprised look, "Galongba, how come you came back so soon? Did you finish hunting so soon?" The leader of the Black Dragon Snakes, Galongba, said angrily, "Alliance leader, I want to complain to you. I was deceived and used by some treacherous villains. They tried to set traps and use the hands of the enemy to destroy us. We almost fell for it and couldn't come back." There is such a strange thing? How did you know?" the so-called alliance leader asked suspiciously. This. Of course I got the news from my special channels." Galongba didn't want to expose Feifei's secret weapon. Who knew that at this moment, A black dragon snake suddenly screamed, "Hey, everyone come and see, there's a monster here." The black dragon snakes followed the screaming black dragon snake's gaze and looked at Feifei, who was sitting on the back of the black dragon snake Gao-chan, making Feifei feel like a thorn in the back and very uncomfortable. Suddenly, a scream of astonishment and even fear was heard. "This monster can discharge electricity, and it killed one of our brothers. Ah, this is unbearable. Drive it out. No, kill it. Yes, kill it and use it as a sacrifice. Kill it, kill it." Suddenly, the shouts of killing rang out one after another, and everyone's passion was ignited in an instant. It seemed that they would not stop until they tore Feifei, the only alien, into pieces. The big-headed Black Dragon Snake Alliance leader asked Galongba in shock and anger, "Galongba, what is going on? Did you bring this monster back?" Seeing this, Galongba had to admit, "Yes, I brought it back. However, Alliance leader, he has now surrendered to us and is my subordinate." The reason why he killed the brother was a complete misunderstanding, and it was their brother who took the initiative. He acted in self-defense. "I hope you will understand and let him go." Unexpectedly, the Alliance leader sneered, "Galongba, of course you will ask us to forgive him, but he didn't kill your men." Galongba heard this and immediately roared, "Nonsense, this guy killed 4 of my generals in a row, causing my troops to lose more than 1/10 of their troops, but I could tolerate it and forgive him without holding a grudge. Unlike you, you are all short-sighted and you judge others by your own standards. How can you accomplish great things with such a small mind? Isn't it just your brother who was killed by mistake? Is it necessary to be so petty?" Hearing Galongba say this with confidence, the scene suddenly became quiet, almost silent, and everyone looked at each other, speechless. Seeing this, Galongba couldn't help but say to everyone complacently, "Everyone, if you want to create a grand cause and resist foreign enemies, you must have a heart of love for talent. Do you have anything else to say? No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum." In fact, everyone now knows that although Galongba and his subordinates are only more than 30 brothers, they are all quite strong. Now with the addition of the lightning monster, their strength has greatly increased. It is estimated that few people present can compete with him. The so-called league leader elected by everyone used to have his own direct troops that were not as good as Galongba troops. He completely relied on everyone's support, and now he dared not provoke Galongba. Seeing that no one dared to say anything, the league leader immediately changed his attitude and announced, "Since everyone agrees, I solemnly announce, welcome this hero to join our team. Everyone, what do you say?" "Okay, okay." Only Galongba, Gaba-chan and Gaba-rao shouted loudly, but none of the other black dragon snakes said anything. Except for Galongba and his subordinates, everyone is now wondering, with this powerful foreign aid joining us, will Galongba attack us dissidents? How should we deal with this ambitious guy? Should we unite and attack him immediately, or should we make plans later? However, the situation outside is still chaotic and unclear. Will we lose our composure if we do this? Chapter 457, Changing Situation. In contrast to the worried and indecisive leaders of the Black Dragon Snake Army, the Galongba was not only in high spirits, but also arrogant and domineering, as if he would sweep the world and unify the rivers and lakes immediately. Our protagonist Feifei was watching coldly on the side. Of course, at this moment, he was in Xiao's camp, but his heart was in Han, ready to escape at any time, and did not want to go along with these villains at the bottom of the lake. Now he was just forbearing for the sake of survival. After all, the environment at the bottom of the lake was much more dangerous than on land and in shallow water. In fact, the leaders of various factions at the scene had their own little calculations. Before they had discussed it properly, they would never act rashly. This was because everyone was afraid of being the stupid first bird to stand out. If Galongba caught him and killed him as a warning to others, who would come to rescue him? Therefore, no one wanted to be such a fool, and everyone chose to shut up and remain silent. Galongba was very satisfied to see that all the leaders present were intimidated by his power and dared not say anything, and he couldn't help laughing excitedly, ha ha, ha ha ha. But at this moment, a black dragon snake suddenly ran in from outside and reported to the Alliance leader, "Oh no, leader, the army of the Azure Dragon Alliance is about to break in. Ah, this is simply outrageous." The Alliance leader was shocked when he heard it, and immediately turned to the leaders present and said, "Commanders, the time of life and death has come. I hope that everyone can put aside their past grudges and unite to fight the enemy together in this critical moment when the enemy is at hand. Everyone, follow me to meet the enemy." Unexpectedly, the leaders looked at each other, and no one was willing to stand up first. In the end, everyone unexpectedly cast their eyes on the Galongba who was so proud just now. Seeing this, the league leader had to follow the crowd and turn his eyes to Galongba, and then asked, "Galongba, your troops are the strongest here, do you want to set an example?" In fact, Galongba was also thinking, "This cunning guy and these clowns here must have wanted to take the opportunity to eliminate the danger I pose to them, and now is a great opportunity for them. I must not be fooled by them. I also want to learn from them to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight." Thinking of this, Galongba turned his gaze to the alliance leader, and said slowly, "Alliance leader, why should my group go forward and fight to the death while everyone else just sits back and reaps the fruits of their labor?" Obviously, the alliance leader did not expect that the Galongba who is so arrogant just now would be so scared and afraid of death when facing a powerful enemy. So he looked at him with contempt and said, "Galongba, you were so passionate and ambitious just now, why do you become a coward now that the enemy is here? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by everyone here?" Galongba was sweating profusely and said with a flickering look in his eyes, "It's not that I don't want to contribute, it's just that the enemy is too powerful. If everyone doesn't work together to fight the enemy, I'm afraid my group will be unable to hold on alone." The alliance leader saw through the Galongba's intentions and advised him in a mocking tone, "Your troops are the strongest among us now. If you don't lead your troops to take the lead, how can we work together to fight the enemy?" Galongba was speechless to the alliance leader's watertight words. He couldn't help but feel extremely anxious and secretly cursed. "This cunning old fox is now forcing me to lead my troops to die so that he can reap the benefits. He is too insidious and cunning. What should I do?" Just as Galongba was hesitant to move forward, suddenly, a sentinel black dragon snake ran to the alliance leader and shouted, "Report, alliance leader, something bad has happened, the enemy has already broken in." Before he finished speaking, he heard the noise outside getting closer and closer. Soon, he saw several guard black dragon snakes fighting and retreating, and next to them came a large group of blue underwater snakes, green dragon snakes. This kind of snake is more powerful and cunning than black dragon snakes, and it is not afraid of death, so it is very difficult to deal with. Seeing this, Galongba's troops and all the black dragon snakes retreated involuntarily, and their expressions of fear were self-evident. In the blink of an eye, countless green dragon snakes came in and surrounded all the 100 or 200 black dragon snakes here, including Feifei, the only alien species, turtle. Soon, as the group of attacking green dragon snakes gathered more and more, finally more than a dozen arrogant and unique green dragon snakes came in. One of them was particularly imposing and was surrounded by several arrogant green dragon snakes. After entering the super hall deep in the lake, it scanned all the black dragon snakes here with its big red eyes, and then shouted in a duck voice, "Who is the leader of the alliance here? Who is Galongba?" The alliance leader knew that if he didn't stand up, it would be too unreasonable, because now almost all the black dragon snakes present were looking at him, the leader of the alliance, so he pretended to cough twice, cleared his throat, and said, "Excuse me, why did your green dragon tribe lead a large army to invade our black dragon tribe's alliance stronghold without any reason, without declaring war, launching a surprise attack, and even knocking on our door? What do you want to do? Do you want to risk the world's disapproval?" Facing such sharp verbal sparring from the alliance leader, the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance was not angry at all. On the contrary, he smiled and said, "Why can't you let us in?" The alliance leader asked back angrily, "Is this still your territory?" The leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance said calmly, "Maybe it wasn't before, but from now on it is our territory." The alliance leader cursed in frustration, "You are so shameless." The leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance looked at the alliance leader, smiled and said, "You understand the truth of the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit, don't you? History is always written by the victors." Then, he turned to the several powerful Azure Dragon snakes behind him and said, "Lay along, catch this ignorant old thing for me, no mistake, one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum." As soon as he finished speaking, 4 or 5 aggressive blue dragon snakes rushed out from behind him, and rushed to the leader of the alliance without thinking twice, wrapping around his neck, chest, waist, belly, thighs, if this black dragon snake had thighs. In short, in the blink of an eye, They wrapped and tied the leader of the alliance tightly. Who knew that at this time, the leader of the Blue Dragon Alliance was still not satisfied, and glanced at the black dragon snakes on the scene, frowned, and asked, "Who is Galongba? Is Galongba here?" Chapter 458, Selling Life and Death to Azure Dragon. Galongba saw that he could not hide, but facing a strong enemy, he had no intention of resisting, nor did he want to surrender like the leader of the alliance. After thinking it over, he finally decided to surrender. So he stood up and lowered his noble head to the leader of the Qinglong Alliance, saying servilely, "I am Galongba, I am willing to lead my troops to surrender to your army." At this time, Feifei, who was riding on the back of Gabachan in the middle of the black dragon snake group surrounded by the blue dragon snakes, despite the spineless behavior of his leader Galongba, who surrendered without a fight, and thought, "I didn't expect that this guy looked so powerful, but he was actually a waste. I really misjudged him. It seems that I should leave here as soon as possible." When the leaders of the various black dragon snakes saw that the most powerful leader among them, Galongba, had surrendered to the enemy, they had no more desire to resist, and they followed suit and surrendered. When the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance saw that the situation on the scene was better than he had expected, he couldn't help but be overjoyed and complacent. At this moment, a Azure Dragon snake suddenly discovered Feifei, a unique species, and asked in surprise, "What's going on? How come you have such a monster here?" Almost all eyes on the scene were focused on Feifei, which made Feifei very nervous, so he said quickly, "I was captured by them as a plaything. Since your two families have reconciled, then there is nothing for me to do. I should leave. I'm leaving now." As soon as the words fell, Feifei left the back of Gabachan, turned around and swam out. Unexpectedly, a duck's cry rang out, "Stop, did I tell you to leave?" Just by hearing the voice, Feifei knew that he was stopped by the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance, and he couldn't help but complain in his heart, "It seems that I can't get away for a while." Feifei stopped and turned around, looking at the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance, and asked, "What's the matter?" The leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance narrowed his eyes and looked at Feifei and said, "Where are you from? Why do you know the language of our underwater dragons and snakes?" Feifei smiled and said, "I am an amphibian on land and in shallow waters, a turtle. Because I have a great talent for language, I know many animal languages, including your language." Is this strange? After hearing Feifei's words, the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance asked with interest, "Then how did you get caught here?" This. Feifei hesitated and didn't want to tell the truth, fearing unnecessary trouble. Unexpectedly, a shameless traitor betrayed him. It is an expert in electric shock, and has killed several of our brothers with electric arcs. Really? Is it so powerful? I can't tell. The leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance was greatly surprised and said half-believingly, "Really, I didn't lie to you." All the brothers under Galongba saw it. The traitor shouted again. It turned out that this guy was not Galongba's subordinate, so he dared to flatter his new master. He was really shameless. Upon hearing this, the leader of the Qinglong Alliance turned his head and turned his gaze to Galongba and asked, "Galongba, is this the case? Tell me." Galongba lowered his head and whispered helplessly, "Yes." When the leader of the Qinglong Alliance heard this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud with joy. After laughing for a while, he asked again, "Then how did you subdue such a powerful guy? Tell me quickly." So, Galongba had to tell the whole story of how he subdued Feifei. After listening to the statement of Galongba, the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance could not help but say with joy, "This is really great. I was worried about the lack of secret weapons, but now I got it unexpectedly. Could it be God's will? It seems that this rash attack is too wise and decisive. It is beyond my expectation." Seeing the smug look of the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance, Feifei knew that he was finished and could not escape. It seemed that he would be controlled by the new king in the future, and even work for him. Now Feifei regretted for the first time that he should not have come to explore the depths of the lake, but it seemed a little late, and he could not help but complain. The most proud person at the scene is naturally the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance named Red-Eyed Dragon. This time, he personally led more than a dozen large and small lake-bottom Azure Dragon Alliance armies with a total of more than 500 Azure Dragon snakes to attack the headquarters and gathering places of the Wulong Alliance army, which was once only a potential threat, in a blitzkrieg way without declaring war. At a very small cost, he achieved a brilliant victory, which can almost be said to be immediate success. It can be seen from this how proud and arrogant Red-Eyed Dragon will become because of this. After all, victory came too easily, And he also got the unexpected surprise of Feifei, which was even more amazing. He called his 4 trusted Deli Stick, Deli Hammer, Deli Rod and Deli Rod to let these 4 Azure Dragon Snakes watch over Feifei, the big baby, day and night, without any mistakes. Before long, Feifei had to join the Azure Dragon Alliance and participated in a battle with another mortal enemy, the White Dragon Alliance. Unexpectedly, this seemingly ordinary battle was unprecedentedly fierce. Both sides refused to give in and tried their best. At the critical moment, the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance, Red-Eye Dragon, decisively threw out Feifei's secret weapon to win the game. No mistakes. As soon as Feifei appeared, he was immediately majestic and powerful. He used the radiant blue light to hit the enemy's 18 generals, which made the enemy's army heartbroken and frustrated. Our army was greatly encouraged to fight back bravely, breaking and reversing the situation in one fell swoop, until the final decisive victory was achieved. In this battle, Feifei played a great role. For a while, he became famous and well-known. In the next few battles, the leader of the Azure Dragon Alliance, Red-Eye Dragon, used Feifei's powerful trump card and was able to obtain a major victory at a very small cost every time. As the Azure Dragon Alliance army won victory after victory, Red-Eye Dragon became more and more arrogant. This time he even vowed to personally lead the army to attack the Megalodon, one of the most powerful monsters in the abyss of the lake bottom, and to fight a life-and-death battle with the spotted Megalodon, one of the big families of Megalodon. Obviously, the move of Red-Eye Dragon was too crazy and could be said to be a suicide. Why do you say that? This is because the Megalodon is one of the most powerful Tyrannosaurus monsters in the depths of this lake. It is said that this type of Tyrannosaurus monster is almost the most terrifying species in the underwater world. They rarely have a record of failure. This group of guys is not only insidious and cunning, but also has a thick skin and a very strong body. They have strong combat power and are even said to be not afraid of electric shocks. After hearing this, Feifei felt hairy and worried. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459, Escape from the Sea of Bitterness. Why did the Red-Eye Dragon still want to fight to the death with such a powerful opponent? Isn't it too stupid? In fact, it can't be said that way. As the saying goes, the greater the risk, the greater the profit. There are 2 reasons. First, the place occupied by this group of spotted giant-toothed dragons is too important. There are abundant resources there, which is a place coveted by all kinds of immortals. Second, it is heard that the old Dragon King is now seriously ill and dying. The struggle among the candidate Dragon Kings for the position of the new Dragon King is very fierce. There is a tendency of a civil war. The situation is very chaotic and worrying. Therefore, the Red-Eye Dragon, who has an indissoluble hatred with the spotted giant-toothed dragon, decided to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and launch a revenge war against the spotted giant-toothed dragon. Not long after, the old Dragon King of the spotted giant-toothed dragon died of illness, and the battle for the new Dragon King broke out in full swing. A big melee was launched in full swing. Just when these stupid things were fighting each other, Red-Eye Dragon finally took action. That night, he personally led the Qinglong Alliance army to rush to Jilong Gorge, the nest of the spotted giant-toothed dragon, with murderous intent, as if a group of night ghosts kept swimming in the abyss of the lake bottom. Sure enough, the spotted giant-toothed dragons caught in the civil war were scattered in all directions, and even the sentinels were listless and dozing off. They never dreamed that the god of death was about to come. Red-Eye Dragon also never dreamed that he would have such good luck, and he couldn't help but be ecstatic. Heaven, Great Lake, thank you for blessing me. So, there was no need to play the trump card of Feifei, and the group of wolf-like Qinglong snakes and Wulong snakes could be easily dealt with. However, things did not go as smoothly as Red-Eye Dragon imagined. Although the sneak attack was a great success, several important Megalodon dragons still escaped, including 3 Megalodon dragons new Geo King candidates, which cast a great shadow on the victory of this battle. Unexpectedly, in the early morning of the 7th day, the Blue Dragon Alliance army of Red-Eyed Dragon who occupied this important strategic location encountered a fierce attack by the remnants of the spotted Megalodon dragon. At this time, The Blue Dragon Alliance army was still sleeping and had not woken up yet, and the Sentinels were also at their most lax. The situation was just the opposite. Although the number of the Blue Dragon Alliance army was far greater than that of the enemy, it was in a state of being slaughtered without any preparation. In less than half an hour, the Blue Dragon Alliance army threw away their armor and fled for their lives. In the chaos, Feifei was not stupid enough to turn the tide and make wedding clothes for others, so he also took advantage of the chaos to escape. Fortunately, almost no one on both sides of the melee paid attention to him. In the panic, Red-Eyed Dragon seemed to forget Feifei's powerful secret weapon and only cared about his own escape. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Feifei desperately went up vertically to the water surface, and swam faster and faster. After a few hours, he almost rose 1,000 meters. From the dark abyss of the lake bottom to the bright place at the bottom of the lake, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, thinking, I finally escaped from the sea of suffering, should I be lucky from now on? After returning here again, Feifei felt particularly relaxed and comfortable. When he saw the various fish he had encountered before, a sense of intimacy of returning to his hometown arose spontaneously. It happened that he passed by a relatively large underwater creature town, where there were many large and small fish, shrimps, crabs and other rich foods. Feifei's appetite is very large now because of his improved skills. In addition, he had just consumed a lot of energy in the desperate escape for a few hours. Now he feels that he can't stand it anymore. Seeing so many delicious foods, he is really overjoyed and immediately starts to prey on those small fish and shrimps. Unexpectedly, a big black fish over 1 meter long actually snatched fish and shrimp from Feifei, a big turtle. At first, Feifei just thought it was funny and ignored it, and even deliberately avoided it. Unexpectedly, the big black fish became more aggressive, thinking that Feifei was honest and easy to bully, and it circled around Feifei and snatched food from Feifei's mouth. Feifei couldn't help but get angry, so she scolded him in blackfish language. Hey, kid, is there something wrong with you? Why do you always pick on me? Unexpectedly, the blackfish said with a playful smile, I am happy, what's your business? Hey, you kid deliberately messed with me, you want to fight, right? Feifei asked. Oh, I didn't expect that you, a coward, are so arrogant. You actually want to fight with me, do you want to die? The blackfish threatened. Who doesn't want to live? Are you sure? Feifei asked back. My dear, that's interesting. So, you, old man, don't want to be a coward anymore and you have courage. Well, I'll help you. How about we have a fight here? Not very good. I'm afraid you will regret it then. Now I still advise you one last time. Leave quickly, otherwise don't blame me if you lose your life. Wow. I have never seen a boastful tortoise like you. It's not certain who will die. I will never regret it, you cowardly tortoise. Don't make such ridiculous excuses anymore. Let's have a fight. You go first, and I'll let you have 3 moves first. How about that? I've said all I can. You still don't listen to my advice. Don't blame me if you suffer the consequences later. Hey. What a stupid fish. Well, you make the first move, HMPH. You are so arrogant. I won't be polite then. Watch out. As soon as the words fell, the blackfish swung its tail and pounced towards Feifei. Seeing this, Feifei immediately retracted her head and limbs into her turtle shell when the blackfish was about to pounce on her head, causing the blackfish's mouth to bite the hard turtle shell, almost breaking several of her teeth. Seeing this, the blackfish was furious and cursed, useless trash, you only know how to be a turtle. If you have the guts, fight me face to face. No mistakes in one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum. Feifei, who had already crawled into the turtle shell, said in a muffled voice, it's not that I don't want to fight with you, it's just that I don't want your life. You have to understand my painstaking efforts. Leave quickly and don't piss me off. Otherwise, when I really start to fight, it will be too late for you to regret it, the blackfish still said stubbornly, boasting, bragging all the time. If you really have such great skills, just show them. Don't let me despise you. I will never regret it. Don't be a coward anymore. It's really embarrassing, it's really hopeless. As soon as the voice fell, Feifei stretched out his head and limbs from the turtle shell, and at the same time, he swung a small amount of electric current at the stupid blackfish in front of him. A blue glowing arc flashed all over the blackfish's body. Suddenly, the blackfish trembled all over, and at the same time, The black fish shouted with chattering teeth, "Help! Help! I give in, I admit defeat." After a few seconds, the electric arc disappeared and the black fish was burned even darker. Fortunately, it did not die, but it was only half alive and in great pain. Chapter 460, Relog in. Seeing how powerful and terrifying Feifei was, the various fish, shrimps and other aquatic creatures passing by and watching the fun took detours or hurried away, fearing that they would be electrocuted if they angered Feifei. This made Feifei feel amused and helpless. He shook his head and sighed, and then left here to hunt elsewhere. Because of the black fish's trouble, he had not had time to fill his stomach. As he continued to rise, Feifei's mood became more and more relaxed. When he surfaced, he couldn't help but exhale a long breath, and then glanced around, and found that he was actually in the middle of the lake, at least more than 1,000 meters away from the nearest lake shore. After thinking for a while, he finally decided to go to the nearest lake shore to take a look or take a tour, so he swam towards the shore he wanted to go. About 2 hours later, Feifei finally swam to the shore of the lake. The fragrance of daffodils on the shore was fragrant, and various animals of different sizes on the shore appeared from time to time. The birds on the branches on the shore sang happily, and the scene was full of vitality. At this time, the sun was shining and the breeze was gentle. Feifei couldn't help but get excited when he saw the beautiful scenery. He climbed up the bank and prepared to walk towards the woods not far from the lake. At this moment, a fox with red hair suddenly came out of the woods and ran to the lake. When it ran to the lake, it put its mouth into the water and drank the water. Feifei ignored the fox and walked towards the woods. Not long after walking, the red fox finished drinking the water, turned around and walked back. In a few steps, it caught up with Feifei, the slow-moving turtle, and rushed in front of Feifei to block Feifei's way. Feifei, who was walking with his head down, suddenly found a red and furry-moving object as red as fire blocking his way. He looked up and found it was a red fox. He curiously asked in the fox language, "Mr. Fox, why are you blocking my way?" Unexpectedly, Feifei's words scared the fox. The fox said in surprise, "Wow! What a smart turtle, you can actually speak our fox language, it's amazing. Where did you learn it from?" Feifei was no longer surprised by his fussing and was too lazy to answer his question. Instead, he said, "Why are you talking so much nonsense? I'm asking you now, why are you blocking my way? Haven't you heard the famous saying, a good dog doesn't block the road? Oh. So that's what you're asking?" The fox blinked and said, "I care about you, because there are poisonous snakes and many mice in this grove. I block you from going for your safety. Why can't you tell good from bad? So, I should thank you," Feifei asked with a smile. "Shouldn't you thank me?" the fox asked curiously. "If it was in the past, I would definitely thank you, but now, I don't need to thank you." "What do you mean by that? Could it be that you were kind before, but now you have become bad?" "What? What nonsense are you talking about? If you don't know, don't talk nonsense. What I mean is that I didn't have any ability before, so of course I was afraid, and I would thank you naturally. Now I am very capable, and I am not afraid of those little bastards. Is this true? Do you really have such great ability? I don't believe it. If you don't believe it, you can follow me and see how I deal with these ignorant things." "Really? Well, I will follow you and watch the fun." As soon as the voice fell, the fox made way for Feifei and followed behind him, wanting to see Feifei's ability. Feifei strode with his head held high, like a victorious general, and walked towards the grove with a swagger, while the red-haired fox, like a servant of Feifei, lowered his head and looked at Feifei, and walked slowly behind him. After entering the woods, the light immediately dimmed. Since it was still daytime, Feifei and the fox wandered around in the woods for a long time, but they encountered neither poisonous snakes nor mice, which made the fox happy for nothing. There was no way. It seemed that if they wanted to see the show, they had to wait until night. Before dark, the fox ran to the lake several times to drink water, but Feifei did not run once. Night fell quickly, and it was getting darker and darker. Those animals who like to move at night came out one after another. First came some mice. Seeing that Feifei, a turtle, was actually staying with a cunning fox, they surrounded the two of them and looked at them several times. After thinking about it, they hesitated for a while, but finally could not make up their minds and left one after another. Not long after, another group of mice, much larger than the previous group, came and also surrounded Feifei and the fox. Each of them showed hungry and greedy green eyes, looking at Feifei, the big turtle, silently. One of the largest mice said, "Brothers, if we only deal with this big turtle now and ignore the fox next to it, I'm worried that the fox will come out to interfere with our actions. Therefore, I decided that we should attack the fox first, but it's just a bluff, as long as we scare him away. After scaring away the fox, we will attack this silly turtle and try to give everyone a good meal tonight. Do you understand?" As soon as the words fell, the surrounding mice could be heard chirping, and the meaning was naturally, "I understand, boss, you can give the order." Seeing that his brothers all agreed with his battle plan, the Mouse King was very satisfied, so he said, "Well, let's attack this fox that is hindering us. Ready, go." After that, he led the group to pounce on the fox. No mistake, 1 poem, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar. This scared the fox. If there were only 3 or 4 mice, it would be easy to deal with. How to deal with so many big mice? Since you can't win, just run away. Thinking of this, the fox turned around and ran out of the encirclement. He ran a long way before stopping. When he turned around, he found that the mice did not catch up. He couldn't help wondering, what's going on? Could it be that this group of big mice didn't really want to eat me, but to drive me away so that they could deal with this self-righteous big turtle? Yes, that must be the case. What a cunning group of mice. No, I have to sneak up and take a look. Such a wonderful show is hard to see at ordinary times. So the fox tiptoed and sneaked towards the place where he had just stayed with Feifei. In fact, Feifei had already understood what the Rat King said, but he did not say anything for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to see if his electric shock skills, which he used freely underwater, would still work on land. Second, he hated the arrogant and self-righteous rats in front of him, and he also wanted to take the opportunity to show the fox that he was not lying. This time, the rats were in big trouble. Unfortunately, these guys who were about to die did not repent until now, and they were still salivating and glaring at Feifei, step by step, tightening the encirclement. Chapter 461, The Lightning Hero. As the encirclement continued to shrink, the mice were in a happier mood, and the greedy smiles on their faces became thicker and thicker. But what surprised the Rat King was that the big turtle, which was about to be eaten by himself and his brothers, did not seem to be afraid at all. On the contrary, he showed a more and more happy smile on his face. Such a strange situation made the Rat King feel frightened. The mice finally stopped around Feifei and prepared to attack, but the Rat King did not give the order to attack. He was still hesitant. Seeing this scene, Feifei had a plan in his mind. "It seems that as long as I solve the biggest mouse in front of me, the Rat King, I will scare away these big mice." Thinking of this, he stopped waiting, aimed at the Rat King, and swung a dazzling blue arc of light. He only heard a scream of awe, and the Rat King suddenly turned into a small pile of black charcoal. The mice were stunned and at a loss when they saw such a dreamy and strange scene. When Feifei saw this, he couldn't help but say to the group of mice who were already scared silly in the language of mice, "Why don't you get out of here quickly? Do you all want to die here and be buried with this guy?" As soon as these words came out, the mice were immediately scared to death and immediately ran around desperately. In the blink of an eye, they ran away cleanly. The red-haired fox, who was 30 meters away, was confused. Before he could figure out what was going on, he saw a sudden flash of lightning in front of him, and then soon, the group of big mice were scared and fled in all directions. The fox felt very strange about this. There was no thunder in the sky just now. How could there be lightning? And this lightning was too strange. It seemed to hit the big turtle right under its nose, just to help him scare away the group of big mice. Isn't this too coincidental? Is there such a coincidence in the world? Impossible. This big turtle might be a wizard or a monster of immortals, who can ask the sky to help him and borrow lightning from the sky for his own use. Ah. If you think about it this way, then this big turtle is too powerful and too scary. This can't be true, right? No, I have to go up and ask. With this thought in mind, the fox trembled and approached Feifei slowly and tremblingly. When he came to Feifei, he stammered and asked, "Did you make that lightning just now?" "It was me. What's the problem?" Feifei answered easily. "Ah. Is it true?" The fox was immediately shocked and his mouth was knotted again. "Of course it's true. Doesn't it feel strange?" Feifei answered first and then asked back. "It's so strange and amazing." "Great immortal, how did you do it?" The fox worshipped Feifei and asked humbly. "Well, keep it secret for now. In short, I can't explain it in one sentence. Feifei didn't plan to tell this fox, who was not familiar with him yet. Great immortal, since you don't want to say it, I won't force you. I only have a small request, and I hope you can agree to it, the fox said humbly. What's your request? Tell me, Feifei asked. Hey. I just want to make friends with you. I wonder if you can agree to it, the fox said eagerly. Your request is indeed not high. Of course I can agree to it. By the way, what's your name? Feifei thought for a while and said. Ah. You really want to make friends with me? That's great. My name is Dao Daoshan. Great immortal. What title should I call you in the future? The fox asked sincerely. Just call me Lightning Turtle. It seems that I am much older than you. Otherwise, call me Lightning Master, Feifei said indifferently. Then from now on, I will call you Lightning Master. It's really wonderful. I feel like I'm dreaming. No, whether this is a dream or not, I have decided to follow you from now on, inseparable, the fox Dao Daoshan vowed. No way, you really want to follow me all the time? You have to understand that I spend most of my time in the water. Are you sure you can always follow me? Feifei asked doubtfully. As long as you are on the shore, I will always follow you, the fox Dao Daoshan promised. That's really admirable. If you really want to do this, I can't do anything about it. It's up to you. Feifei had no choice but to say helplessly. Great. Today will be the most memorable day in my life. I'm so excited, the fox Dao Daoshan actually cried with joy. But at this moment, a huge king cobra, which was about 13 or 14 meters long, appeared from nowhere and appeared near Feifei and Dao Daoshan, swimming towards them. In the blink of an eye, it came to them, immediately raised the front half of its body, stared at them with its big yellow-green eyes as big as table tennis balls, and said ferociously, Today, sir, I want to see where you two can escape to. Seeing this, Feifei felt very funny, and said in the language of the king cobra, Are you sick? Why should we run away? Are we afraid of you? No mistake, one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. At first, the king cobra was surprised to hear that Feifei, the turtle, could actually talk to it in the king cobra language. Then, after understanding what Feifei said, it couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. After a while, the king cobra stopped laughing, and then it said arrogantly, This is the funniest and most ignorant thing I have ever heard. Although I know that you, a coward, are difficult to deal with, I have plenty of time to deal with you. Now, I ask you to get out of the way. I want to eat the fox next to you that has been scared silly by me. Faced with such an arrogant and conceited king cobra's naked threat, Feifei was not moved at all. However, before giving it the final fatal blow, he decided to give this ignorant thing a last chance to survive, so he seriously warned, My last advice to you, get out as soon as possible, otherwise, you will die without a burial place. However, the king cobra was furious when he heard it. What? You poor, lowly coward dared to threaten me, your master? Don't you want to live? Great. I'm in luck tonight. I met a fool who didn't know how to run away and called himself a hero. Now I won't be polite. As soon as he finished speaking, he pounced on the fox Dao Daoshan, trying to bite it to death with his fangs and swallow it into his stomach. Feifei certainly would not let the king cobra succeed in his wishful thinking. In a flash, just before the king cobra was about to pounce on the fox, he swung out his classic blue dazzling arc light, and it was full of weight. Such weight was enough to stun or even kill an elephant. Suddenly, with a shrill and strange cry of awe, the king cobra turned into a crooked piece of black charcoal in the blink of an eye. However, the snake meat inside the long piece of charcoal had not yet been burnt black. It was just cooked and dried to become bacon, very fragrant and delicious. It was really a great delicacy. Chapter 462, Providing Protection. Witnessing with his own eyes how Feifei used lightning to turn the king cobra into long, crooked black charcoal, the fox Dao Daoshan was so shocked that his jaw dropped. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. He stammered, is this true? I'm not dreaming, I can really eat this burnt big snake. Feifei smiled and said to Dao Daoshan, You'll know if you try it. It probably tastes pretty good. The fox Dao Daoshan walked forward cautiously, as if afraid that the burnt king cobra would suddenly come alive and pounce on him. He suddenly stretched out his right front paw and slapped the burnt black snake hard at the vital point. There was a crisp pop sound, and the black snake's head fell off. Then, Dao Daoshan used his right front paw to pry open the black snake's black outer layer, opened his mouth to bite the dry cooked snake meat inside, and began to eat it in big mouthfuls. While eating, he kept nodding and said, "Well, it tastes good, very delicious, and so fragrant." When Feifei saw it, he couldn't help swallowing his saliva and said, "Since you said it's so delicious, please break off a piece of meat for me to try." "Okay, I'll break off a piece of snake meat for you, Master Lightning, it's really delicious." Before he finished speaking, the fox Dao Daoshan broke off a piece of dried snake meat with his right front paw and handed it to Feifei's mouth. Feifei bit it and chewed the cooked snake meat. The aroma was overflowing, and the taste was both fresh and crispy. It was so delicious. Of course, they couldn't finish such a long and big king cobra in one meal, so they had to stay here and ate it for 3 days before they finished it. It was so comfortable. Since he had such a good partner, Feifei was not in a hurry to live in the water. He tried to travel and play around the lake with Dao Daoshan on land. In this way, those guys who thought they were great and didn't know how to live or die, such as lions, tigers, leopards, bears, pythons, crocodiles and other beasts, were in bad luck. Almost all of them were killed instantly by Feifei's lightning. In this way, they didn't have to worry about their daily meals at all, and they had more than enough to eat, and they had delicious mountain food every day. It was really enjoyable. Before long, the reputation of Lightning Knight spread all over the lakeside. Many wild animals even took the trouble to run from far away to watch. Of course, they just looked from a distance, dared not look closely, and dared not provoke. And those vulnerable groups such as herbivores came one after another, begging Feifei to provide them with reliable protection. Feifei generally accepted everyone and tried his best to meet their requirements. In the evening, several female lions chased a group of sika deer. They chased until they came to Feifei and Dao Daoshan. The leader of the group of sika deer ran to Feifei, knelt on the ground without saying a word, and begged with tears in his eyes, "I beg Lightning Warrior to save my group of sika deer from danger. On behalf of my group of sika deer, I express my most sincere respect and heartfelt gratitude to you." As soon as he finished speaking, he kowtowed 3 times to Feifei. Seeing this, Feifei immediately smiled and said, "Then you quickly take your group of sika deer and go behind me, let me deal with these ignorant lions." In a blink of an eye, the group of sika deer, led by their leader, entered the grove behind Feifei, and Feifei stood in the middle of the fork in the road, trying to stop the female lions from chasing the group of sika deer. Soon, the lionesses chased Feifei. Feifei was too lazy to talk nonsense with the lions. He immediately swung a dazzling blue lightning to hit the lioness who ran in front. Although he only used 1/3 of the maximum current, he still shocked the lioness immediately. She fell to the ground with a plop sound, and she didn't even have time to make a sound. Faced with this sudden change, the other 4 lionesses who followed were stunned and at a loss. They all stared with their big round eyes at Feifei, the big turtle with such magic. Feifei looked at the frightened lionesses calmly, and said with a smile in lion language, "If you still want to live, get out of here quickly. I will protect the group of sika deer that just passed by." At this time, one of the 4 lionesses said to Feifei, "You are the turtle known as the Lightning Warrior, right?" Feifei said without blinking, "Yes, it's me. Since you know my reputation, you should know how powerful I am. So why don't you get out of here quickly?" The lioness was not scared off by Feifei, but asked Feifei, "Why do you want to intervene in ordinary events that have nothing to do with you?" Feifei said righteously, "Does this matter really have nothing to do with me? I am doing a just act to protect the vulnerable." The lioness retorted disapprovingly, "What you call a just act is wanting to starve us to death. This is just your one-sided statement, not true justice." When Feifei heard this, she couldn't help but look at this eloquent lioness with new eyes. After thinking for a while, she said, "You are good at speaking, but I am too lazy to waste words with you. Since I have promised the sika deer leader to protect their safety, I can't go back on my word. So, please forgive me and don't force me to do something I don't want to do. If you don't listen to my advice and insist on going into the grove, don't blame me for being cruel." After hearing Feifei's words, the lioness knew that there was no room for negotiation on this matter. She couldn't help but sigh deeply and had to lead the other lioness to turn around and leave in disgrace. Unexpectedly, Feifei stopped the group of lionesses at this time and said, "You should take the lioness who fell on the ground back. She is not dead yet, she just fainted." The lionesses turned their heads and looked at the lion and Feifei who fell on the ground, which meant, "How can we take her away? We don't have hands." Upon seeing this, Feifei took a deep breath, walked forward, and exhaled a long breath into the nostrils of the lioness who had fainted on the ground. Not long after, the fallen lioness woke up faintly, glanced at Feifei and the 4 lionesses around her, and asked, "Am I dreaming?" The lioness who had been talking to Feifei came over and said to the lioness who had fainted and now woke up, "This is not a dream. You were electrocuted by this flash warrior, but fortunately he showed mercy and didn't want your life. Now we have decided to give up hunting down the group of Sika deer. You'd better go back with us." "Hey. What's going on?" The fallen lioness sighed deeply. "Who did I offend to let this famous flash warrior electrocute me? Did I do too many sins in my previous life?" Hearing her say this, Feifei couldn't help but say with a smile, "It's not that I committed too many sins in my previous life, but that I have committed too many sins in this life. Think about it carefully. Have you killed the most herbivores among your group of lions?" Chapter 463, Successive Frustrations. Now let's switch the scene to Susan again. Soon, the captives consciously stood in 3 groups. Although their wings were tied up by silk grass and they couldn't fly, they could walk dozens of steps on the ground without any problem. To be on the safe side, Susan carefully conducted a sample survey from the 3 groups of prisoners. After confirming that everything was correct, she treated them differently. All the captives who believed her words had the best food to eat, all kinds of dragonfly delicacies. Those who were half believing and half doubting could only wait until the evening to have a small fly or something to fill their stomachs, and those who doubted and didn't believe her words could only drink water and eat a few small mosquitoes before going to bed. Susan was a little troubled by the silent group of prisoners, because she knew that the leader of the enemy army might be among them, and she also estimated that this was a group of stubborn prisoners, all of whom were important members of the enemy's leaders, nobles, their families, and bodyguards. It was not easy to resolve the hostility of this group of prisoners, and she planned to adopt the strategy of first courtesy and then force and soft and hard tactics. First, she asked the soldiers to bring as much and good food as possible, and said to them sincerely and gently, "I know that you are all important figures in your tribe, and you hate our actions and think that we are your sworn enemies." After a pause, Susan continued, "But you should also know the truth that success makes you a king and failure makes you a bandit. Since you have failed, you must admit defeat, otherwise you will die. In fact, I really want to establish a real alliance with you, but we must lead you, and you must obey our leadership. In this way, you may be unwilling to accept it at first, and even want to fight with us again to decide the outcome. What should I do? I have to kill all of you to prevent future troubles. In this way, you will definitely say that I am too cruel and too ruthless. Alice. There is really no way. This is the law of the jungle and the cruel reality. If you stand in my position, I think you will do the same as me, or even more cruel than me, and kill us without asking any questions. By the way, your leader did this once, on the morning of the day when we raided you, but unfortunately you didn't find us that time and missed an opportunity to destroy us. Where were you hiding that day? I sent so many soldiers to search but couldn't find anything. I thought the adulterous couple were lying about military intelligence." Suddenly, a voice sounded among the group of prisoners. Susan couldn't help but look up towards the place where the voice came from. Looking at the conceited look of this guy, it was obvious that he was a big fish. Susan said with a smile, "You are Gao Feifei, the leader of the god-worshipping dragonfly tribe, right?" The guy who had just spoken stood out from the pile of prisoners and said, "Yes, I am. What do you want to do to me? Do you want me to lead troops again?" Smiling, Susan said, "It is absolutely impossible for you to lead troops again, so don't dream of it. However, I don't plan to kill you, unless you behave yourself. My real idea is to have you and all the leaders under you undergo labor reform and go to the grassroots level for re-education. In short, I want you to receive ideological education." When Gao Feifei heard this, he suddenly deflated like a punctured ball, sat down dejectedly, and said no more. Obviously, his good dream had already flown away and would never come back. After solving the resettlement problem of the leaders of the great dragonfly tribe of worshipping God, Susan devoted herself to the physical and mental transformation and education of the ordinary soldiers of the tribe, so that they could become members of her team. Susan had her own unique method for this problem, and soon achieved great success. In this way, her team grew stronger. But at this time, an unexpected locust plague suddenly hit, catching Susan off guard and causing heavy losses. Why did this happen? It turned out that this year, A locust plague that was rare in a century suddenly occurred, with an unprecedentedly wide area and range, and a locust army of tens of millions happened to pass by here and stayed in Susan's newly occupied land of the great dragonfly tribe of worshipping God, which caused Susan and her dragonfly tribe to suffer. This army of locusts that covered the sky like a huge dark cloud was really powerful. There were so many locusts that they were crowded. Their countless mouths spewed out dark green juice, which soaked countless locusts and other locusts. Countless locusts rubbed their limbs against each other, making a thrilling loud noise. The locusts ate everything they saw: leaves, weeds, green plants, and various insects, including Susan's dragonfly army. Susan and her sisters had to lead their subordinates to take off and escape urgently. After all, the number of these inexplicable enemies was too large to resist. They could only escape. However, even so, Susan still lost more than 70% of her team members. After getting away from the army of locusts, Susan counted the number of dragonflies and found that there were only 200 or 300 pitiful big dragonflies left. Fortunately, the remaining 90% were the basic base of Susan and her sisters, that is, Susan and other 10 sisters and veterans brought from the old mountain stronghold. There were very few prisoners who had been reformed and educated. But just when Susan was planning to regroup and make great plans, an unexpected disaster befell Susan again. What happened? It turned out that on this day, Susan and her sisters took hundreds of brothers and sisters to the wild for military training. Unfortunately, they encountered the natural enemy that dragonflies fear the most, the blue-billed bird that loves to eat dragonflies. This time, Susan and her sisters were in trouble because they only had the ability to escape and had no power to fight back. After all, there is a huge gap between dragonflies and blue-billed birds. Dragonflies are insects, while blue-billed birds are animals. The difference between insects and animals is not a little bit. This almost became a one-sided massacre. Susan and her sisters had to desperately find a place to hide. Even so, Susan's army of dragonflies that went out for wild training eventually lost more than half, which made Susan very sad. A perfect poem, a post, a content, a 6-9 book, a forum. Hi. I never expected that one thing would not end until another. That night, while camping in the wild, Susan and her friends were attacked by a red-billed owl, and more than 30 dragonfly brothers and sisters were killed again. In this way, in just a few days, Susan lost another 8 or 9 big dragonflies. And only more than 130 dragonfly combatants were left. This is really misfortunes never come singly. After this series of unfortunate events, Susan became depressed, unsmiling, and lost in thought, worrying about the future. Chapter 464, Susan's Dream. That night, for some reason, Susan had a long dream. She dreamed that she was reborn or reincarnated many times, from aliens to roses, jasmines, osmanthus, plum blossoms, orchids, daffodils, fool flowers, devil flowers and other flowers, as well as butterflies, beautiful snakes, eagles and ant queens and other animals and insects. It was almost a replay of her past experiences. How could she have such a dream? She had never had such a dream before. People say that you dream about something at night, and you will dream about it immediately after watching a certain TV show or reading a certain novel. That is a very normal thing. However, it is very rare for someone like Susan to dream about her previous life or even dozens of previous lives. She has been dreaming all the time. After dreaming about this life, she will dream about her next life. It is really interesting. She dreamed that she turned into a flower and bloomed to her heart's content. She also dreamed that she turned into a butterfly and flew around. She also dreamed that she turned into an eagle and fought in the sky. Dreams are such strange things. In just a few minutes, you can see all your lives. If it is a few hours, you will see your various lives and experiences in the past dozens or even hundreds of lives. In the dream, Maidapao changed from a toad to a sloppy snake, and then from a snake to his wife, a female eagle. Then Susan flew with Maidapao and traveled around the mountains and rivers. Finally, when they settled in the crown of a big tree, they were struck by a sudden lightning. From then on, she turned into an ant princess, and then turned into the queen of the ant country, while Maidapao disappeared from then on. In the dream, she led her ant army and civilians to conquer cities and expand territory from the queen of the ant city-state to the queen of the ant country, and achieved one brilliant victory after another. However, the next dream puzzled Susan, because she dreamed that it was not her previous life or dozens of previous lives, nor her current life as the thunder dream dragonfly. Instead, she dreamed that she turned into a big rooster and was captured by primitive humans, apes or wild people. To be a rooster used to announce the dawn. In a small courtyard made of bamboo fences, Su-san, as a rooster, walked back and forth restlessly, wandering around. Suddenly, Su-san found a centipede crawling over on the ground. The rooster Su-san immediately shouted, "Stop! Haha! Did you forget to check the almanac before going out today? Didn't expect that you would run into me, your grandpa," the centipede responded tremblingly. Yes, I never dreamed that I would meet you, Grandpa," Su-san asked arrogantly. "Do you have any last words? If you do, say it quickly, otherwise, it will be too late." The centipede was so scared that it begged for mercy. "My kind-hearted Guanyin Bodhisattva, this time my wife is about to give birth, and I can't go out to find food, so I met you unfortunately. Please have mercy on me this time, okay?" Su-san said proudly. "Yes. Are you scared and begging me for mercy?" the centipede said timidly. Yes, spare my life, Su-san asked knowingly. "Do you know why I want to eat you when I see you?" the centipede said cautiously. "No, I don't know. Maybe you and us centipedes have a grudge in the previous life," the rooster Su-san roared. "Nonsense. That's not the case at all," the centipede asked in confusion. "Why is that? Please tell me." "I don't know," Su-san said resentfully. "What I hate most about you is that I, your grandpa, only have 2 legs, but you, a little thing, have so many legs, and you wander around showing off all day long. Aren't you deliberately trying to piss me off to death? God is so unfair to me. So when I see you with so many legs showing off everywhere, I get so angry that I'm furious. So, every time I see you or your kind, I want to eat you. This is the real reason." When the centipede heard this, he cried out in his heart, "Ah! God! It's so unfortunate, so unfair, and so sinful for us centipedes to meet you, an unreasonable rooster." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and wanted to slip away. Unexpectedly, at this time, the rooster Su-san shouted loudly, "Stop! There is no way you can run away." Hearing what Su-san said, the centipede was frightened, but then he had an idea and thought of a plan. Uncle, I don't want to run away, but I want to go back and discuss with my wife to see if I can remove a few legs to meet your request, Grandpa Rooster." Su-san heard it and suddenly realized, so that's how it is. Yes, it's a good comrade to correct mistakes. However, if you want to remove them, then just remove them all, don't leave any legs." The centipede was so scared that he stammered, Uncle, then, if all the legs are removed, how can I walk?" Su-san said confidently. "Why can't they walk? Look at animals like snakes, eels and loaches. They don't have any legs, but they can still walk just fine. Also, I never eat snakes, eels or loaches, not even one. It's because they don't have legs and I have 2 legs, so when I see them I'm not jealous at all, but rather I feel complacent and proud." The centipede suddenly realized and asked, "So according to you, sir, I should start to learn to walk like a snake now?" The rooster Su-san agreed and said, "Of course. We should learn until we die. I learned to get up early and crow when I was a child, and I have never been lazy for a day. Now I'm so old, but I'm still working so hard to learn foreign languages every day, so that I can make friends with other animals when I travel in the future." At this moment, the centipede took advantage of Su-san's complacent boasting and quietly slipped away. When Su-san came to his senses, he found that the centipede was gone. He was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Unexpectedly, after a while, another centipede crawled out. Su-san, the rooster, found it again and rushed forward immediately, shouting, "Stop! You didn't listen to me and sneaked away just now. Now you run out again and I catch you. Where can you run to?" Unexpectedly, the centipede complained, "Grandpa Rooster, I go out for the first time today." "Well, I know, the centipede you saw just now must be my husband," Su-san asked. "So you are a female centipede that is about to give birth." "Female centipede? Yes, Grandpa Rooster, you are right. I am a female centipede that is about to give birth. Because my husband was scared by you just now, he dared not go out again. So, I had to go out to find food myself." Su-san couldn't help but wonder, "You are so bold, aren't you afraid that I, your grandpa, will eat you in one bite?" Chapter 465, Reincarnation of Lizard. The female centipede said confidently, "I'm afraid, of course I'm afraid. But I heard from others that Grandpa Rooster, you are wise and great, and you never bully us vulnerable groups such as the old, the young, the sick, the disabled, and the pregnant women. Especially for pregnant women like me who are hungry and looking for food, you will definitely show mercy. You won't ruin your reputation for a small bite of mine that can't fill your stomach, right? Rooster Susan boasted. Of course. I'm a magnanimous person. This time, I'll learn from Guan Yu who let the thief Xiao escape on Huarong Road during the Three Kingdoms period. I'll let you, a pregnant centipede, go and be a good person. The female centipede thanked her profusely and was about to turn around and leave. Unexpectedly, Susan suddenly stopped her. Wait. Don't leave in a hurry, I have something else to ask you, the female centipede asked puzzledly. Ah. What else? Grandpa Rooster, Susan asked, has your husband told you that he wants to remove his legs? The female centipede rolled her eyes and said, yes. He just told me, and I have agreed to cut off all his legs and turn him into a little snake. But, I don't have a pair of scissors at home. I'm planning to go out and buy a pair of scissors. Susan was very satisfied with this. That's better. It seems that you are a reasonable and caring woman. Then do it quickly, I'll be waiting for your good news. The female centipede pretended to answer readily. Okay. I'll do it right away. As soon as she finished speaking, she left in a hurry. Although Susan did not eat a centipede, her conversation with the centipede couple made her feel much better, and she even hummed a little tune unconsciously. This is the boring but interesting life of Susan, who turned into a big rooster in her dream. But Susan didn't know why she had such a dream. Could it be that she would be reborn as a rooster next time, and this time she actually gave a warning in advance? Just when she was sleeping in a daze, and dreams came one after another, the real nightmare and reality suddenly fell on her head. Because she and her brothers and sisters had to avoid the sneak attacks of owls in the past few nights, they slept and rested in the dense leaves near the branches of the tree canopy every day, so they naturally avoided the danger from the air, but ignored the danger from the branches. Late at night, Susan was sleeping soundly, and a hungry female lizard, which was nearly a foot long, happened to climb onto the branch closest to Susan. She accidentally discovered Susan, a big dragonfly who was sleeping in a daze, so she approached Susan quietly. When she was only half a foot away from Susan, she pounced on Susan like an arrow, bit Susan's head, and ate Susan into her stomach in a few seconds. At this point, Susan's dragonfly career ended, and she once again changed from an insect to an animal. Last time, she changed from a butterfly to a venomous snake, and this time, she changed from a dragonfly to a lizard. Now Susan's soul automatically, of course, it was controlled by the aliens' high-tech equipment, entered the head of the female lizard. In just a few minutes, Susan's soul successfully suppressed and replaced the original soul of the female lizard. After a dizzy spell, when she opened her eyes, she found that her body was no longer a dragonfly but a lizard. Faced with such an ugly body and inexplicable sudden reincarnation, Susan couldn't help crying bitterly for her misfortune and miserable life. Unexpectedly, after a while, Susan's crying attracted another lizard, a male lizard named Hanan who was pursuing the female lizard that Susan was reincarnated from. He crawled to Susan's side and asked in a concerned tone, "Moji, why are you crying? Who bullied you?" Susan raised her tearful face and looked at the male lizard. Because Susan had completely suppressed the soul of the original lizard, there was no record of the male lizard in her remaining memory. Then Susan felt confused and painful in her head. She shook her lizard head involuntarily and asked inexplicably, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The male lizard Hanan opened his eyes wide in astonishment and explained, "I am Hanan. Why, don't you remember me? I am your most ardent pursuer." Susan said disdainfully, "Hanan, what's that? What does it have to do with me?" Hanan was anxious when he heard it. "Moji, what's wrong with you today? You were not like this before." Susan couldn't help but ask curiously, "Then what was I like before?" Hanan felt very strange about Susan's attitude, so he had to explain patiently, "Although you didn't agree to be your boyfriend before, your attitude towards me was much better than it is now. Occasionally, you accepted the gifts I gave you, and often played the game of hide and seek with me. Sometimes, you even performed your beautiful dance in front of me." Susan expressed disbelief. "Am I really that coquettish? How come I don't remember anything now?" Seeing Susan actually said this, the male lizard Hanan couldn't help but get angry and said, "How can this be called coquettish? This is called enthusiastic and generous, beautiful and lovely. Do you understand? Really, Sam thought for a moment and said with determination, "I tell you, that was me in the past. I will never be like that in the future. I want to be myself again." "Then what will you be like?" the male lizard Hanan asked in confusion. "You will know later," Sam said casually. The male lizard Hanan looked confused and bitter. From then on, the Thunder Dream Dragonfly army without Sam soon fell apart. And Susan also began her own lizard life. Although she was reluctant, she had no choice but to muddle through. As soon as the night fell that day, Susan woke up early from her sleep and began a day of hunting. The lizard she reincarnated into liked to come out at night, so she was unable to change this habit for a while, because she was sleepy as soon as the sun rose and wanted to sleep very much. On the contrary, at night, she was particularly energetic. However, as a lizard that feeds on various insects, most of the insects have already fallen asleep at this time, which is also the best time for lizards to prey on insects. After a few days, Susan has become accustomed to catching flies, grasshoppers, locusts, cockroaches, snails, crickets and other insects at night, and they are delicious and tasty. Although it is very convenient for her to catch dragonflies of all sizes at night, Susan, who was once a dragonfly of Lei Meng, has an unusual affection for dragonflies and other insects. Therefore, under normal circumstances, she will never catch dragonflies unless other insects are extinct. Not only that, Susan often prevents the male lizard Hanan and other lizards from catching dragonflies, and tells them that dragonflies are spiritual creatures, and if they are caught too much, they will be in trouble. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466, Lizard Life. Generally speaking, creatures like lizards have powerful and even irresistible advantages over various insects. They are the nemesis of almost all insects, except for a few poisonous insects such as poisonous spiders and scorpions. In fact, at night, crickets do not sleep, but because of their slow movements, they are very easy to become the food of lizards. However, Susan tries to catch crickets as little as possible because she can understand the content of the cricket's chirping, unless she is really hungry and can't find other insect food for a while. Susan heard that crickets are mostly singing very happy love songs. In other words, crickets will sing mountain songs to find their other half after nightfall, and sometimes they even sing very emotionally, which can be said to be sound and emotion, moving all directions, and lingering. Therefore, many times, Susan lizards spend this long and boring time by listening to the songs of crickets in this long night. Of course, for lizards, or commonly known as four-legged snakes, happy things will inevitably be accompanied by tragic and dangerous things. Just last night, Susan saw with her own eyes that one of her companions, another female lizard, was swallowed by a cobra that appeared from nowhere. In an instant, she died. Susan was terrified and shuddered. It seems that no matter what kind of animal, even humans, they are afraid to avoid poisonous snakes like cobras. The fear is self-evident. As a lizard that is far inferior to humans, Susan is also very worried and scared. Although she has been reborn as a poisonous snake beauty snake, she still doesn't want to become a poisonous snake again and be eaten by an eagle or some other animal. Although becoming a lizard has made her feel wronged enough, she still doesn't want to feel more wronged. At night, for Susan lizard, not only poisonous snakes are a huge danger, but also poisonous spiders and scorpions, even owls, big black wolves and weasels, all pose a great danger to her. It can be said that dangers are everywhere. Fortunately, she now has a pair of very useful night vision eyes. As long as she is always careful and cautious, she can still barely survive. During the day, Susan also had to find a relatively safe place to sleep, preferably a place with dense leaves and no spider webs, because after dawn, all kinds of birds flying in the sky are her potential natural enemies, and she must be on guard. In fact, life is not easy for any creature, even humans cannot guarantee that there will be no accidents in your life. Susan, who has reincarnated dozens or hundreds of times, has a deep understanding of this, and has tasted all the ups and downs. When living in the tree at night, Susan only needs to guard against attacks from spiders and owls, but once she lands, there are more dangers to guard against. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Susan still tries not to come down from the tree to avoid accidents. In fact, In addition to paying attention to the dangers around her at all times, Susan also has to avoid harassment from her own kind, especially the harassment and disturbance from the pursuer Hanning and other male lizards. Why did Susan reject the pursuit and harassment of Hanning and other male lizards? The reason why she did this was mainly based on the following 2 points. First, she had just been reborn as a lizard and was not yet accustomed to the living habits and physiological characteristics of lizards. In other words, she was not yet accustomed to the role of a female lizard. Second, she did not want to be controlled or dragged down. If she talked about love or had children with a male lizard, she would be completely likely to be monitored by her husband and dragged down by her family and children because she had a human soul with high intelligence and there were more and bigger things waiting for her to do. Because of the above 2 reasons, Susan planned to carefully study the living habits of lizards in the near future to see if there was anything worth improving, so as to find a breakthrough and create conditions for herself to do something meaningful in the future. To do this, she must be different, do her own thing, and be independent. Naturally, Susan's strange behavior confused her suitor Hannon, but made him even more obsessed with Susan. He was almost inseparable from Susan and could not be driven away. Susan had no choice but to let him go. This may be in line with the saying, "What you can't get is the best." Susan suddenly remembered that among lizards, there is another very special group called chameleons. She wanted to know how chameleons live, so she asked the male lizard Hannon, "Have you ever seen a chameleon?" Hannon asked in confusion, "What is a chameleon?" Susan explained, "It is a kind of lizard whose skin color changes with the surrounding environment but always remains consistent. It is not much different from us." "Have you seen it?" Hannon looked at Susan without blinking and said, "No, I have never heard of such a kind of lizard among us." Hearing what Hannon said, Susan said thoughtfully, "In this case, the place where chameleons live must be far away from us, but I am very interested in this kind of lizard now, and I really want to learn more about it. Are you willing to accompany me to find chameleons?" Upon hearing this, Hannon was horrified and looked at Susan with wide eyes and said, Moji, do you really want to find this monster? Wouldn't you have to walk a very long way? The risk and difficulty are too great. I won't allow you to do such a stupid thing." There is no mistake in the content of the poem, post, and book. Susan looked at Hannon and said seriously and unquestionably, "I warn you again, my name is not Moji, my name is Susan, and I am not your wife. You have no right to restrict my freedom. If you don't come with me, I will go alone. Do you understand?" After hearing Susan's words, Hannon became anxious. "Moji, you can't do this. In order to find that monster called chameleon, you even gave up your own name and took another name. This is completely unlike you before. What happened these days? I found that you are becoming more and more weird. Are you haunted by some wronged spirit?" Susan was so shocked that she trembled all over when she heard it, and she couldn't help but mutter in her heart, "Could it be that this guy found out that I am not the original female lizard? No, it seems that I have to stabilize this guy first, so that he won't mess with me in the future and affect my plan." Thinking of this, Susan immediately smiled and said, "Hannon, what are you thinking? How could I be haunted by some evil spirit? We are not advanced animals. If there is any evil spirit, it will haunt advanced animals such as monkeys and humans. Why would it haunt low-level animals like us? Are you bored? Don't you think so?" Hearing what she said was reasonable and flawless, Hannon lowered his head and thought about it carefully, but couldn't find any loopholes, so he agreed, "Well, it seems that I can't argue with you, so I have to go with you." Chapter 467, Avoiding Danger. Seeing that Hannon agreed to her request, Susan threw him a sweet date and said, "Hannon, as long as you accompany me to find the chameleon, I will agree to be your girlfriend." "I promise to keep my word." Hannon was very happy to see that Susan finally agreed to her request, although the premise was very harsh. At the same time, his enthusiasm for accompanying her to find the chameleon increased a lot. After eating and drinking enough and preparing well, Susan and Hannon embarked on the journey to find the chameleon. Since they can neither fly in the sky like birds, nor use the air corridor on the trees like monkeys and gorillas to shuttle through the woods, they can only crawl on the ground honestly. It is conceivable that the journey is difficult and there are many dangers. What's more, they usually have to sleep during the day, and only have the energy to walk at night, which increases the danger by more than one time. Of course, the most common and greatest danger here is naturally poisonous snakes. How can we avoid encountering poisonous snakes as much as possible? Now this question is the most important one before them. After thinking about it, Susan finally decided to use her hearing and smell to judge whether there are poisonous snakes and other dangers on the road ahead, because based on the experience of many years and countless reincarnations, she basically summed up a general rule, that is, wherever there are crickets chirping or where crickets chirp the most, there are generally no poisonous snakes and other snakes. Relatively speaking, it is safer there. So, Susan and Hannon followed this rule and moved towards the place where crickets chirp the most every night. Basically, there was no major danger. Of course, if you want to dodge poisonous insects such as poisonous spiders and poisonous scorpions, you have to rely on your judgment and agility to dodge quickly, but because spiders and scorpions crawl much slower than lizards, they are easy to dodge. But if Susan and Hannon want to avoid the lightning-fast attack of the insidious and cunning poisonous snake, it seems powerless, so the road to find chameleons is really dangerous. Of course, those big snakes generally disdain small lizards like Susan, because she is not big enough to fill her teeth with a big snake. She and Hannon are mainly worried about snakes of ordinary size, including venomous snakes and non-venomous snakes. In short, she is afraid of snakes, even though she herself is known as a four-legged snake. That night, Susan and Hannon set out on the road to the tropical rainforest to look for chameleons. As they walked, they suddenly heard that the crickets nearby suddenly stopped chirping. Oh no, something is wrong. Susan immediately took Hannon to climb up the nearest short tree and hid. After a while, a rustling sound came from the left front from far to near. Susan, who was hiding in the short tree, carefully stretched her head and looked down. My goodness, it turned out to be a 1.5-meter-long silver ring snake. If she and Hannon did not hide, they would become the delicacy in this guy's mouth. This frightened Susan and Hannon so much that they broke out in cold sweats and were terrified. They were still trembling even after the snake had passed by. Hannon even backed out and said tremblingly, Well, Moji, I think this road is too dangerous and too dangerous. Let's go back quickly. Don't look for that chameleon anymore, Susan said disapprovingly. Do you think we can go back now? It's too late. I'm afraid even I don't know how to go back, let alone you. Then, what should we do? Hannon was frightened when he heard it, and asked hurriedly and stammered. Susan said firmly, What do you mean? Just chill. Chill? What do you mean? Hannon asked in confusion. After thinking for a while, Susan responded, Hannon, what I mean is that we should still be flexible in the future and not rush forward stupidly. After a pause and pondering for a long time, Susan finally made up his mind and said, From now on, we will try to choose woods or places with dense trees to move forward. In this way, we will be safer. Hannon tilted his head and asked Susan, Why do you say it is safer to choose places with many trees? Susan rolled his eyes at Hannon impatiently and said, You are stupid. If we choose a place with many trees, we can always find the nearest tree to climb up to avoid risks when we encounter danger. Do you understand? Hannon suddenly enlightened. Oh, so that's the case. Moji, this is a good idea. Then what are we waiting for now? Let's go find a place with many trees. Unexpectedly, Susan rolled his eyes at him and said, Why are you in such a hurry? I need to think about it carefully. I found that the closer we are to water and shade and where there are many frogs and toads, the more snakes, venomous snakes and poisonous insects there are. We should try our best to avoid these places in the future. Hannon shook his head and thought about it, then asked, Moji, according to what you said, the forest and the woods are also shady places, and there must be a lot of venomous snakes and poisonous insects there. If we go in, wouldn't it be tantamount to going to die? Susan stared at Hannon and said seriously, Hannon, I have also thought about the problem you mentioned. But where else can we go if we don't go to the woods? In other places, if we encounter natural enemies, we will have nowhere to run. In the forest or woods, we at least have a place to avoid danger. Hannon had to agree with Susan's suggestion. Hey, Moji, it seems that we have to act according to your idea. Susan suddenly got angry and said, Hannon, how many times have I told you, don't call me Moji, call me Susan, remember? Alice, you are so stubborn and never change. Well, it seems that the crickets around us are chirping again, and we should get on the road. So, Susan and Hannon continued to walk forward carefully, looking around with their eyes, sniffing with their noses, and listening carefully with their ears. They moved forward cautiously like this, and they could not walk far in one night. It was good enough if they could walk 1 or 2 kilometers. That night, as they were walking, Before they reached the woods, Susan suddenly smelled a strong fishy odor coming from the front. Then, about 100 or 80 meters ahead, there were bursts of rustling sounds, accompanied by the cries of various snakes. "Oh no, the big king cobra is coming, everyone run!" Susan was immediately frightened when he heard it, and hurriedly said to Hannon, "Oh no! There are a lot of snakes running towards us in front, quickly find the nearest big tree to climb up to avoid the risk." Hannon was immediately scared out of his wits and couldn't speak completely. "Well, then, there is no big tree nearby. What should I do?" Chapter 468, Dangerous Forest. Susan was so anxious that he jumped up and down and said, "What else can we do? Let's run back quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and ran back. Hannon followed closely behind him and turned around to run away. He ran desperately, but the rustling sound behind him was getting closer and closer. What should he do? The poisonous snakes were getting closer and closer to him. Suddenly, a green bamboo leaf pit viper swished past by Susan like a flash of lightning, but did not hurt Susan. Maybe this little snake was only concerned about escaping and had no time to catch delicious food. Then, 2 or 3 small patterned snakes brushed past Susan and Hannon, scaring them into cold sweats. Susan couldn't help thinking, now it's a small snake brushing past us. Later, if a bigger snake comes over, it may not be the same. It may eat us in 2 bites. As he ran and thought, he became more and more scared. At this moment, something even more terrible suddenly appeared in front of Susan. A 3-meter-long cobra blocked the escape route of Susan and Hannon. The cobra stood up straight, raised its head, stared at them fiercely and said, "Two little things, I wonder where you can escape to? Come and die." Hannon was so scared when he saw it that he stood there, at a loss. Although Susan was also scared, he quickly calmed down. He said to the cobra in front of him in cobra language, "Brother Cobra, don't you see that we are all running for our lives? You still have the leisure to hunt for food? There's a huge king cobra behind us that is about to catch up. If you don't want to live, then you'd better stay here and we will die with you." When the cobra heard it, it was immediately scared to death. It immediately lowered its head and asked Susan in an extremely gentle tone, "Really? Are you sure you are not lying to me?" Susan said impatiently, "Why would we lie to you? Don't you see that there are many snakes of all sizes running for their lives beside and behind us?" The cobra looked up and saw that it was true, so it politely said to Susan, "Thank you," then it turned around and left quickly. Susan and Hannon continued to run for their lives. Suddenly, Susan saw a rock crack next to them that was just right for hiding, so he immediately took Hannon and got in, thus avoiding the crisis. 2 days later, Susan and Hannon finally entered a large forest. Although there were thorns and weeds everywhere, there were many trees, so it should be easier to avoid sudden dangers. In fact, in this large forest, there are several more dangers, because there are not only many kinds of snakes, spiders and scorpions here, but also many kinds of birds that like to eat small lizards, such as falcons, eagles, shrikes and owls. In addition, there are capuchin monkeys and raccoons in the trees who also like to eat lizards. Now, not only on the ground, but also on the trees and even in the air, there are natural enemies waiting for her and her companions. Unexpectedly, Susan and Hannon just left the tiger's den and came to the wolf's den, and it was several times more dangerous than before. As soon as she stepped into the forest, she found that she and Hannon were surrounded by 20 or 30 poisonous scorpions. There were scorpions in front, behind, left and right. This scared them both. For a moment, Susan didn't know what to do. Suddenly, Susan looked up and found that there was a large leaf grass about 2 meters high, similar to the elephant grass on Earth, 2 meters away from him in the southwest direction. There happened to be a big tree not far from this large leaf grass. If he could climb up this large leaf grass, he could use the large leaf grass as a springboard to jump to the big tree. However, on the way to the large leaf grass, there are now 4 poisonous scorpions blocking his way. What should he do? Frowning, Susan came up with a plan and said to Hannon, "Wait, you follow me closely, watch my movements, and follow my actions." As soon as he finished speaking, Susan rushed towards the 4 poisonous scorpions that blocked his way to the large leaf grass, and frightened the 4 poisonous scorpions. Wow! No way? This guy actually ran over to die. Isn't it afraid of our scorpion tail poison needle? While the scorpions were puzzled, Susan had already rushed in front of them, turned 180 degrees, and then swiftly swung his tail, sweeping the 4 scorpions with his long lizard tail, knocking down 2 of them, and then swiftly swung his tail again, knocking down the remaining 2. Then, he passed through the 4 fallen scorpions and ran towards the big leaf grass, shouting as he ran, "Quick, Hanan, follow me closely." While thinking, Susan and Hanan climbed up a big leaf grass that was more than 2 meters high, and finally climbed to the top of a wide leaf of grass, and each of them couldn't help but let out a long breath. After a moment, Susan raised his head and looked at the big tree not far away, estimating whether he could use the rebound force of the big leaf grass to jump onto the big tree. But at this moment, the big tree that Susan had placed great hopes on suddenly shook violently. Immediately, a colorful lizard that was bigger than Susan's head fell from the tree and landed on a large grass leaf next to Susan, which scared Susan and Hanan. Seeing this, Susan couldn't help but curiously ask the lizard that fell from the tree, "Hey, man, what happened? How did you fall from the tree?" The green lizard with patterns on its body looked at Susan and asked in surprise, "You are from other places, right? You may not know that there are dangers everywhere here. Just now there was a capuchin monkey hiding in this tree. I was careless and didn't find it. Fortunately, he didn't find me either. The reason why the tree was shaking violently just now was probably caused by this guy when he swung to another big tree next to it. You must not climb trees casually. The dangers on the trees are no less than those on the ground." Susan asked in confusion, "Why can't we climb trees? We are coming to this big forest. If there were no these dense big trees, we would not have come." The green lizard looked at Susan like an idiot and said, "Why are you so stupid? Don't you know that there are many animals in this tree that are natural enemies of us lizards? There are all kinds of birds, eagles and monkeys during the day, and owls at night. Even some poisonous snakes may climb up the tree to catch us, no mistake." Susan and Hanan were surprised when they heard it. How could it be like this? Aren't we lizards doomed? The green lizard glanced at them with sympathy and pity, sighed deeply, and said, "Hey, who said it wasn't? We lizards may be the most pitiful and sinful animals in this forest, no doubt about it. What I don't understand is why the 2 of you ran here to die." Susan couldn't help but smile bitterly. "We really didn't know that this forest was so dangerous, so we rashly broke in. We were surrounded by poisonous scorpions on the ground just now, and it was not easy to escape to this big leaf grass." Chapter 469, Dangerous Road. Hearing what Susan said, the green lizard couldn't help but sighed. "You two are really good, I really admire you too." Susan suddenly seemed to remember something and asked the green lizard, "Have you heard that we lizards have a very unique species called chameleon? Are there any of them in this forest?" The green lizard lowered its head and thought for a while, then said, "I seem to have heard of such a species before, but they definitely don't live in this forest. As for where they live, I don't know." Susan raised his eyebrows and said, "Thank you for your reminder. It seems that we have to leave this forest. May I ask you, is there any relatively safe place nearby for us lizards?" The green lizard frowned, thought for a while, and said, "Turn right of this forest. There is a large low-lying area covered with large leaf grass. After passing this low-lying area, there is a large beach. On the other side of the beach is a large lake, and on the other side of the lake is a primitive forest. The chameleon you are looking for may be found in that primitive forest." "Really?" Susan was delighted when she heard it, and said happily, "If there is one there, thank you so much." The green lizard smiled and said, "You're welcome. I hope you can find what you have always dreamed of." "I wish you a safe journey," Susan said happily. "Thank you. We also wish you all the best. Goodbye. See you later." Then, Susan took Hanan and tiptoed out of the woods quietly, for fear of alarming the poisonous insects and snakes in the woods. They found the low-lying area covered with clover that the green lizard mentioned, and carefully passed through it. Unexpectedly, before they had walked halfway, they suddenly found a spotted viper lurking in the middle of the road in front of them, blocking their way. Scared, Susan and Hanan hurriedly climbed onto the nearest clover, and waited until the annoying spotted viper quietly left before they sneaked down from the clover and continued on their way. After passing through the low-lying land covered with large leaf grass, a large beach with pebbles of different sizes appeared in front of Susan. Susan looked beyond the beach and looked into the distance. She saw a sparkling lake under the bright moonlight, which made her yearn for it. So she took Hanan with her and stepped onto the pebbled beach, heading towards the sparkling lake. As they walked, the sound of frogs croaking quack, 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 came one after another, and from time to time, a few frogs of different sizes would jump around, but they ignored Susan and the other lizards. Susan didn't care and continued to move forward with Hanan. Suddenly, 4 or 5 more scorpions appeared in front of them, blocking the way of Susan and the 2 lizards. Susan could not help but get angry, and once again used her unique skill sweeping the thousands of troops, using her versatile lizard tail to quickly sweep 2 or 3 times, sweeping all the blind scorpions that blocked the way to the ground, and then quickly ran towards the lake with Hanan. But when Susan and Hanan were less than 50 meters away from the lake, suddenly another huge lizard appeared in front of them. This dark red lizard, to be precise, should be called a gecko. When Susan saw this gecko, she could not help but be surprised and happy. I finally met my own kind again. I will go and ask him if we can swim across this lake and if there is any danger in the water. Thinking of this, Susan walked forward and said enthusiastically, "Hi. Hello, sir. Can we swim across this big lake in front of us?" Unexpectedly, the big gecko said sarcastically, "You still want to swim across this big lake? You have to get past me first." Susan was stunned when he heard it, and his mind didn't turn around for a while. What do you mean?" the big gecko said with salivating eyes. What do you mean? "What I mean is that I want to treat you to as snacks to fill my stomach." Susan was even more shocked at this time, and said angrily, "What did you say? Why do you want to prey on your own kind? Do you still have a conscience and shame?" the big gecko said shamelessly. "Can conscience and shame fill your stomach? For me, as long as I can fill my stomach, everything else is bullshit." Susan just realized at this moment that this was really a scholar meeting a soldier and can't explain his reason clearly. She no longer hesitated, and immediately whispered to Hanan, "I'll go left and you go right, bypass this bad guy and quickly run to the lake. Ready, go." Before she finished speaking, Susan took the lead in bypassing the hateful big gecko in front of her and ran towards the big lake in front. Hanan also followed Susan's instructions, bypassed the big gecko from the right, and ran quickly towards the big lake. The big gecko saw Susan and Hanan passing by him, and for a moment, he didn't react, and didn't decide which lizard to catch first. He hesitated a little, so Susan and the lizard took advantage of the opportunity. When he reacted and turned around, Susan and Hanan had already run away. It was too late to chase them now. Even if he could catch them, he would have to jump into the lake. But he didn't want to jump into the water because he knew that there were fierce lionfish in the lake recently, and sometimes there would be ferocious crocodiles, which was really dangerous. Seeing that the pursuit was hopeless, the big gecko had to coax them loudly, "Why are you two running away? I was just kidding you. We are the same kind, how could we kill each other? On the contrary, if you run into the water, that would be really dangerous. You two may not know that there are not only fierce lionfish in this lake, but also ferocious crocodiles. If you jump into the water, even if you don't commit suicide, you will be in danger of death. It is difficult to survive. Why don't you come back and let us make friends? How about it?" Susan and Hanan, who were almost at the lakeside, less than 1 meter away from the lakeside, finally stopped moving forward, hesitating and hesitating. Susan thought that if he went back, he would definitely die. The insidious and cunning big gecko definitely had no good intentions. Jumping into the lake would at most mean death, but there was still a glimmer of hope. That is, if he did not encounter crocodiles and lionfish. Even if this possibility was small, Susan still wanted to give it a try. No mistake in the poem. The content of the poem, the book of Chapter 470, Deceiving the Flower Snake. Seeing this scene, Susan and Hanan were immediately frightened, sweating profusely, and at a loss. Just at this moment, a crocodile more than 3 meters long surfaced from 80 meters to the right and swam towards Susan and her companions. This time, it was completely over. Susan and Hanan were really terrified and complained bitterly. There were powerful enemies on both sides. It was too late to go back, and going forward was a dead end. It would be great if Susan and the 2 little things could dive into the water and escape. Unfortunately, reality is cruel. What should we do? We can't just sit and wait for death, right? Just when Susan and Hanan were panicking and hesitant, suddenly, Susan was surprised to find that the lionfish and the crocodile actually let her and Hanan go, and swam towards each other, as if no one would give in to the other. Are they going to fight to decide the winner? As expected, in the blink of an eye, the 2 water kings collided like 2 warships and started to bite each other. The nearby water surface was immediately covered with blood, which showed how fierce the battle was. Seeing this, Su-san hurriedly said to Hanan, "Follow me and take this opportunity to go around the side." As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and went around the left side of the scene where the two idiots were fighting fiercely, and then swam desperately to the other side of the lake. When victory was in sight with only a few meters away from the other side of the lake, suddenly, a small crocodile more than 1 meter long emerged from 5 meters behind Hanan and chased after Hanan at a speed 2 or 3 times faster than Hanan. At this time, Su-san and Hanan did not notice it at all and were still swimming forward with all their might. Just when Su-san had 1 foot on the shore and was about to call his companion Hanan to go ashore, he suddenly heard a scream of "Ah!" coming from behind him. He immediately rushed to the shore and turned around to see that about 1 meter behind him, a small crocodile less than 2 meters long was chewing a lizard in big mouthfuls. Judging from the lizard's tail sticking out of the mouth of the small crocodile, it was undoubtedly Hanan's tail. Obviously, the crocodile had bitten Hanan to death and was now chewing and swallowing Hanan. The next target would be Su-san himself. Seeing this, Su-san cried out sadly, "Ha!" Then, she turned around and ran desperately towards the bushes not far from the shore, not daring to look back. In this way, from the moment she landed, Su-san once again became a lone commander. Not long after entering the bushes, she soon found that the frogs nearby suddenly stopped calling. She thought, "This is definitely not because of my presence. I don't have such a strong deterrent power. It is very likely that the natural enemy of the frogs has come nearby, and the frogs are scared and dare not squeak. What could it be? It can't be a poisonous snake or a big flower snake that likes to eat frogs or some other animal. Since it can eat frogs, it can naturally eat small lizards like me. Oops, there is an enemy nearby. It's dangerous. What should I do? For now, I can only find a place to hide immediately. Where is it safer to hide?" Su-san looked up and found that the closest and more reliable place to her was a small dwarf tree about 1.5 meters high 2 meters to her left. She just needed to climb to the top of this small dwarf tree to be safe. Thinking of this, Su-san bent down and silently moved towards the dwarf tree step by step. When she was only half a meter away from the dwarf tree, she looked up and was immediately shocked. A big flower snake as thick as an adult's forearm was coiled around the dwarf tree. It stared at Su-san, the little lizard, with its bright eyes and grinned smugly. Then it said, "Where can you run to, you silly little thing?" Su-san was immediately scared out of her wits, but she calmed down immediately and said to the big flower snake in Snake Mandarin, "You must not eat me, because I am highly poisonous. If you don't want to die, stay away from me." Actually, this big flower snake is a non-venomous snake and has no resistance to various toxins. Therefore, it is most afraid of poisonous snakes and poisonous insects. After hearing what Su-san said, it couldn't help but be cautious, but still questioned Su-san in disbelief. "How dare you lie to me, little thing? Do you think I don't know? A small lizard like you is not a chameleon. How can it be poisonous? I just ate a small lizard like you yesterday, and I'm fine now, right?" Su-san was confident and said slowly, "You also know that chameleons are poisonous, but do you know why chameleons are poisonous? That's because chameleons like to eat a kind of golden poisonous leaves, which slowly accumulate strong toxins in their bodies. In fact, I started eating the same golden poisonous leaves as chameleons when I was very young, so the toxins accumulated in my body now are no less than those of chameleons." After a pause, Su-san said in a bluffing manner, "If you don't believe it, just come and eat me. Come on, come and eat me." After hearing Su-san's bold threats, the big flower snake hesitated, thinking, "I have never seen such a bold little lizard, and it looks like it is serious. Maybe it is true. I can't take the risk of losing my life for a bite of lizard meat that can't fill my stomach. It's not worth it." Having made up its mind, the big flower snake put down its threatening attitude and said to Su-san in a friendly manner, "Well, I won't eat you today, you can go away." Unexpectedly, Su-san even went further and said, "Are you kidding me? I'm not leaving, but you are leaving." The big flower snake was stunned when he heard it, and asked in confusion, "I have already promised not to eat you, but you are going further. You don't leave yourself, but you want me to leave? What's the logic?" Su-san raised her chin proudly towards the big flower snake and said confidently, "Because I have taken a fancy to this dwarf tree, I want to stay on this tree for one night, so I have to ask you to leave." Unexpectedly, the big flower snake was not happy and said, "That won't do. My 2 sons are still on this dwarf tree. They are still sleeping on the tree now." After hearing what the big flower snake said, Susan couldn't force it anymore, so he had to say, "Okay, then I don't want this small tree, I will find another tree to rest." After that, he stood up and walked forward, but before he took a few steps, he turned around and asked the big flower snake, "I forgot to ask you one thing, are there any snakes ahead?" Seeing Susan actually asking such a strange question, the big flower snake couldn't help but wonder, "Aren't you poisonous? Aren't you afraid of snakes eating you? Why are you asking me about snakes?" Susan retorted dissatisfiedly, "I'm asking about poisonous snakes, such as cobras and other snakes." Unexpectedly, the big flower snake asked again, "You are poisonous, but you are afraid of being bitten by poisonous snakes? Did you lie to me just now?" Susan hurriedly explained, "How can they be the same? The toxin in my body is plant poison, and the poison in the cobra's teeth is neurotoxin. These are two completely different types of toxins. You don't even understand this, you are simply an idiot." Chapter 471, Adventure in the Jungle. The big flower snake was speechless after being taught a lesson by Susan, and it could not vent its anger. Then it was so embarrassed that its face turned red and it was in a state of embarrassment. Finally, it said in anger, "I don't know. You can only wish for the best." Susan smiled awkwardly, but this kind of smile was uglier than crying. Then she walked away in boredom and continued to walk forward cautiously. In order to escape, Susan decided to try to choose a place with more dwarf trees. After all, the phenomenon of snakes entrenched in dwarf trees like the one just now should not be very common. Who knew that even so, Susan was still unlucky. She happened to meet the poisonous snake she feared the most, a cobra. Moreover, this 2-meter-long cobra stayed 2 meters away from Susan, holding its head high and looking at Susan with a fierce look. This frightened Susan out of her wits. After calming down a little, she immediately turned around and ran to a small dwarf tree half a meter behind her at lightning speed. With a swoosh, she climbed to the top of the tree's crown. After Susan climbed to the top of the tree, he stretched his head and looked down, but found that the cobra did not catch up with him, but stayed where he was, which made Susan puzzled. About half an hour later, a fat black rat that was several times heavier than Susan passed by carelessly. The cobra bit the fat black rat and injected the venom in its sharp fangs into the fat black rat's body, killing it instantly. Then it opened its bloody mouth and slowly swallowed the fat black rat into its stomach. Seeing this scene, Susan realized that the cobra did not chase him because he could not fill its belly. It turned out that the cobra stayed under the small tree to ambush those fleshy prey, such as big rats or big frogs, etc. It would not take a small lizard like Susan seriously. It could run away if it wanted to. If it didn't run away, it might eat it as a snack. In this way, Susan stayed on the dwarf tree for 2 hours. She saw with her own eyes that the cobra devoured 5 black-haired mice, 2 big mice and 3 small mice. It seems that the cobra has a big appetite. It didn't leave until the guy's belly was full. When Susan flew down from the top of the dwarf tree to the ground, it was already dawn. Susan was so tired that she was sleepy, but in order to enter the primitive forest as soon as possible, she decided to continue moving forward day and night. Fortunately, after dawn, there were fewer snakes in the grass on the ground, and all kinds of insects of different sizes woke up, moved around, and looked for food everywhere. Taking this opportunity, Susan, who was hungry and tired, had to start looking for food everywhere. Half an hour later, she was full and started on the road again. Although she was still a little sleepy, she was much more energetic. As she was walking, Susan suddenly found that the weeds here were very deep, long and dense. She thought, if I climb up these tall grasses and jump from one to another, wouldn't it be faster and safer to move forward this way? This thought made Susan excited and cheered. She immediately climbed up a very tall grass and began to test her previous idea. Due to her lack of experience and inaccurate judgment, plus there was a little wind, her first jump was actually empty, and she fell hard to the ground, biting her face in the mud. Fortunately, there were many dense grasses on the ground, so she was basically not injured. No, try again. This time, Susan saw it clearly and jumped hard, and finally caught a long grass she was aiming for. Wow! Success! I finally succeeded. Susan couldn't suppress her extremely excited mood, and shouted happily, attracting the attention of nearby animals and insects. Then, she became more and more courageous, and the more she jumped, the better she became. Gradually, she continued to move towards the primeval forest in this way that she had created. In the evening, Susan finally entered a primeval forest thousands of meters away from the lakeshore and breathed a sigh of relief. Normally, she should start to move around after nightfall, but because she was exhausted from the long journey in recent days, she had to choose a big tree nearby that she thought was relatively safe. There were no owls or monkeys on the tree, and there were few poisonous spiders and scorpions. She climbed to the middle of the tree and hid in the dense leaves under the canopy. Then she closed her eyes and fell asleep. When Susan opened her eyes and woke up, it was already dusk the next day. She didn't expect that she had slept for a whole day and night. She felt very energetic now, and her whole body was refreshed, but she was a little hungry. It was time to go out to find food. In fact, she was a little hungry before going to bed last night. This was of course caused by the continuous travel and excessive energy consumption. She quietly slid down from the tree to look for and prey on various insects that like to sleep at night, such as grasshoppers, locusts, beetles, caterpillars and dragonflies. In order to avoid the threat of various poisonous snakes and poisonous insects on the ground, she did not dare to land on the ground, but looked for insects on the tall and deep grass. Even so, it didn't take long for her to eat a full belly, which shows how many insects there are in this primeval forest. Of course, she also encountered poisonous spiders several times and touched the spider webs woven by poisonous spiders many times, but because she was quick to react and pulled away quickly, she did not let those slow-moving poisonous spiders succeed in their plot. Afterwards, Susan returned to the tree again. This time she was ready to climb higher. Suddenly, a huge squirrel rushed down from the treetop. Its height and length were much larger than Susan's lizard. It met Susan on a narrow road. Suddenly, it scared her so much that she wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Unexpectedly, the big squirrel stopped in front of Susan unexpectedly, staring at her with a pair of bright squirrel eyes, as if asking, "Who are you? Why haven't I seen you before? Are you new here?" Seeing the silly and cute look of the big squirrel, Susan couldn't help but greeted it with a smile in squirrel language. "Hey, hello. Are you an old resident here? I'm a new customer, please take care of me." No mistake in the poem, content, and book. The big squirrel was surprised to see that Susan, the little lizard, could speak squirrel language. It was stunned for a while before it came to its senses and said hesitantly, "Hello, you. You actually know our squirrel language. It's not easy. Did you learn it from us squirrels?" Susan rolled his eyes and said improvisationally, Yes, I have many squirrel friends. I have been interacting with them for a long time. So I naturally learned your squirrel language. Is this strange?" After hearing what Susan said, the big squirrel suddenly realized, "So that's it. That's not strange. However, since you have many squirrel friends, why did you come to my place?" "Why?" Susan pretended not to know and asked, "Can't I come to your place?" Chapter 472, Through the Forest. The big squirrel explained, "It's not that I don't want you to come, but it's too dangerous for a little lizard like you." "Why is it dangerous here?" Susan asked in confusion. "Look, I'm alive and well now, aren't I?" "Hey, how can I tell you, a little lizard who doesn't know the immensity of the world?" The big squirrel sighed deeply, and then said, "Do you know that you are just too lucky? Under this tree, there are all kinds of snakes, scorpions and poisonous spiders that love to eat you lizards. And on this big tree, if you climb a few meters higher, you will see macaques or capuchin monkeys. They also like to prey on small lizards like you. In addition, there are owls at night and several large birds during the day that like to prey on you. It seems that this place is extremely dangerous for us lizards," Susan said in horror and curiosity, "but I have one more thing to ask Brother Squirrel. Are there any chameleons in this primeval forest where you live?" "So, you came to our primeval forest to look for chameleons," the big squirrel inferred from Susan's words. "Yes, in fact, I came here to look for chameleons, and I even sacrificed a companion for this," Susan replied sadly. "So that's how it is." The big squirrel blinked, thought for a while, and said, "I haven't heard of chameleons in our forest. However, I once heard that if you go through a primeval forest, cross a few rivers to the south, and climb over a few mountains, you may find chameleons in the tropical rainforest in the south." "Thank you, Mr. Squirrel." Susan became excited again after hearing what the squirrel said. "Then I won't climb up now. I'd better find a way to get through this primeval forest as soon as possible. Bye, Mr. Squirrel." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned and slid down the tree in a hurry, but did not land directly on the ground. Instead, she jumped onto tall grass less than 2 meters from the ground, sniffed with her nose, listened with her ears, and looked with her eyes to make sure that there was no very dangerous information around. Then she jumped towards the depths of the forest, to another long grass about half a meter ahead. Susan understood that in the primeval forest, for a small lizard like her, night is always much safer than day, so she chose to cross the forest at night. The reason for this is that the little lizard has too many natural enemies during the day. There are several large birds in the sky: eagles, hawks, falcons, magpies and shrikes, macaques, slow lorises, capuchins and raccoons in the trees, and snakes, scorpions and other small animals on the ground. At night, except for owls, all the birds in the sky sleep, and all the monkeys and raccoons in the trees also sleep. Only some snakes, scorpions and other nocturnal animals on the ground do not sleep. In this big forest, for Susan, the biggest danger at night may be owls, because she tries to jump back and forth and shuttle back and forth 2 meters from the roots of tall grass, small trees and big tree trunks, so all the dangers on the ground are not considered dangerous. The only big danger left is naturally owls. To avoid the danger of being hunted by owls, the first thing to do is to listen, and be calm and listen to whether there are owls nearby. The second is to feel, mainly the sixth sense, to see if there is any dangerous breath from the trees or the sky. Finally, look, use night vision, to see if there are big birds flying in the sky. If there are, it is most likely an owl. In addition, if you find a pair of round, shiny golden eyes on a tree in the woods, it is almost certainly the eyes of an owl. Therefore, if Susan wants to cross this big forest at night, the most important thing is to beware of the sneak attack of owls, which is a danger from overhead. In order to deal with this sudden attack of owls, she would stop every 3 steps, look around, listen carefully, and look around to see if there are any owls. In this way, she walked into the forest carefully for 1 or 2 kilometers, and did not encounter any owls along the way. Gradually, various birds in the forest began to cry, the night gradually faded, and the sky became brighter and brighter. Seeing this, she immediately found a nearby tree and hid in the densest leaves, and took a nap to avoid the more dangerous daytime. After night fell again, Susan came out from her hiding place again. After foraging and eating, she continued her adventure through the forest. Time passed by minute, and just as midnight was about to come, Susan suddenly heard the cry of an owl in the sky in the distance, so she stopped jumping on the long grass immediately, and then she had an idea, jumped from a long grass to the nearest big tree, and quietly climbed up along the big tree trunk, intending to climb to the top of the tree canopy to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, before she climbed 2 meters, she saw 3 poisonous scorpions blocking her way less than half a meter in front of her, above the tree trunk. Seeing this, Susan didn't know how they climbed up the tree. It's not like this under normal circumstances, and he couldn't help but get furious. He immediately said to them in Scorpion Mandarin, "You guys, get out of here quickly, otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." The 3 scorpions were surprised to see that the little lizard below not only spoke scorpion language, but also was fierce. They were stunned for a long time before they came to their senses. Then, the scorpion in the middle stared at Susan and asked him in a stern voice, "Where did you come from, you monster lizard? How dare you be so fierce to us 3 scorpion heroes? What tricks do you have? Just use them, we will take them all." As the saying goes, the fierce ones are afraid of the fierce ones, and the fierce ones are afraid of the desperate ones. At this time, for Susan, there was only Hushan road to go. Even if he risked his life, he had to beat these 3 bandits who blocked the road and robbed them under the tree. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum, one look. She bit her little gums and uttered a sentence fiercely. "You said that." As soon as she finished speaking, she rushed forward. Before the 3 guys could react, she did a 360-degree tail swing on the spot, sweeping fiercely at the 3 scorpions who didn't know what was going on. With a cry of awe, the scorpions screamed in unison and were swept down to the bottom of the tree by Susan's lizard tail almost at the same time. After dealing with the scorpion robbers blocking the way, Susan continued to climb up the tree. After climbing a few meters, a big black patterned venomous snake was entrenched on the big branch in front of her. This scared her so much that she lost her grip on the tree and almost fell off the trunk to the bottom of the tree. When Susan looked up carefully, thank God, She discovered that the black patterned poisonous snake on the tree branch did not seem to see Susan, but instead locked its eyes on a large bird's nest on a tall branch on the left that was higher than itself. It was estimated that the poisonous snake wanted to sneak attack a bird or bird eggs in the large bird's nest. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, Climbing the Mountains. After understanding this, Susan decided to quietly climb to the branch of another big tree on the right side, in the opposite direction of the black patterned venomous snake, to avoid being discovered by the venomous snake and stealing away. Just as she climbed to the larger branch on the right side and prepared to find a place to hide, she suddenly heard a bird screaming miserably, and Susan realized that a little bird had fallen into the bloody mouth of the black patterned venomous snake and died. Then, within 2 seconds, the sound of a big bird, Susan guessed it was an owl, flapping its wings was heard in the sky, and then a gust of wind suddenly blew inexplicably, and a huge eagle spread its wings and swooped down, flapping the leaves and making them fly everywhere. The bird of prey opened its big, round, and yellow eagle eyes, and in the blink of an eye, it caught the black patterned venomous snake that had just attacked the bird from the shadow of the densely leafed tree. The leaves were flapped by the wings of the bird of prey, and in the blink of an eye, the bird of prey, owl, and the venomous snake disappeared into the dark night. Susan saw the whole thrilling process of the snake catching the bird and the big bird catching the snake with his own eyes, and couldn't help but sigh. This is really a world where the weak are eaten by the strong, and the strong are respected. Especially in this primitive forest. After seeing the owl fly away, Susan hurriedly came down from the tree and continued her night movement through the forest. Most lizards crawl slowly, but Susan, a highly intelligent lizard, would take a strange leaping approach. She was using all available objects that were far above the ground. She would jump onto the leaves of deep grass, then onto the bottom trunk of a big tree, or onto the branches and leaves hanging from high places, then onto higher rocks, and then onto the top of the crown of a small tree. If there was really no high place to jump from, she would rather climb to the top of a high tree crown and jump from the branches of one tree to the branches of another tree, as long as the branches and leaves of the two trees were almost touching. If an extreme situation occurs, Susan has a clear view ahead, with no obstacles, no deep grass, and no short trees, then she will have to choose to take a detour. If the distance is not very far, less than 100 meters, then she will take a sprint to quickly run through this dangerous distance after confirming that there is no danger. In short, in order to cross this extremely dangerous primeval forest, Susan tried every possible way to pass through this minefield as quickly as possible in a safe and fast way. After more than a month, after going through hardships, she finally passed through this large forest and came to the other side of the forest. Suddenly, she found a tall mountain in front of her. This mountain is almost entirely composed of cliffs. If it were an ordinary mammal, it would be difficult to climb this mountain, but for Susan, a small lizard, it is no problem. This is because she is very light in weight, and her 4 feet have strong adhesion. In addition, there are many cracks on the cliffs and vines and other green leafy plants growing in the cracks of the cliffs, which makes it more convenient for her to climb. Thinking of this, Susan began to climb the steep mountain wall that is difficult for us earthlings to climb with bare hands. However, she climbed up easily and happily, just like walking on flat ground. Susan saw that climbing such a steep mountain wall was effortless. As a former human on an alien planet, she couldn't help but sigh. It seems that humans and animals have their own advantages. Humans have developed brains and intelligence, while animals have developed limbs or bodies. While climbing up, she was thinking wildly. At this moment, she suddenly found a bottomless cave half a meter in front of her. This small cave is big enough for a leopard to get into. What kind of animal is hiding in it now? With this thought, Susan couldn't help but stop and carefully observe the small black hole above, and she was muttering in her heart. Suddenly, a snake head emerged from the small hole. The snake head stuck out of the hole and looked around, as if looking for something. Seeing this, Susan broke out in a cold sweat. She quickly lowered her head and quietly retreated downwards, intending to retreat 3 or 4 meters away before trying to find a way to bypass the snake hole. Maybe the snake in the snake hole didn't notice Susan, The little lizard, or maybe the snake, thought it was not worth it to risk falling off the cliff to chase a little lizard. Until Susan retreated to 3 or 4 meters below the snake hole, nothing happened. Then, Susan climbed 7 or 8 meters to the left away from the snake hole, climbed up again, avoiding the snake hole, and climbed to the top of the cliff without any danger. As soon as she climbed to the top of the mountain, she found that it was almost dawn, so she had to quickly find a low leaf in the deep grass on the top of the cliff to hide in case she was seen by the big birds flying in the sky and swooped down to prey. After the night fell again, Susan was suddenly awakened by a series of noisy sounds. She opened her eyes and stuck her head out from the dense leaves. She looked in the direction of the noise and was surprised to find that on the grass on the top of the mountain more than 10 meters away from her, a large group of small lizards were divided into 2 teams, desperately biting a 2-meter-long spotted snake. After a while, they tore off the outer layer of the spotted snake skin, revealing the white and bloody snake meat under the bright moonlight. Then, the group of small lizards rushed to pounce on it and began to bite and devour the tender snake meat. Such a passionate and lively scene made Susan salivate, but she did not dare to go rashly, because she knew that as an uninvited guest, it was inconvenient for her to compete with these small lizards for food. Besides, this delicious snake meat was the result of their labor at the risk of their lives, and it had nothing to do with her. She must not pick peaches. After figuring out this truth, Susan calmly became a good audience with a mentality of watching the fun. However, she had not been a good audience for a few minutes when a small lizard that was eating greasy food suddenly turned around and left the snake meat banquet and walked towards Susan's hiding place. It soon discovered her and walked up to her and asked, "Hey, men, why don't you come to work or come to the banquet?" Susan carefully looked at the male lizard in front of her, who was younger and slightly smaller than herself, and said with a smile, "I am not a member of your group. I just came here from a long distance last night and passed by here on the way. I took a break here and happened to see you sharing snake meat here. I am so envious. I really don't know how you caught this spotted snake. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum." The little male lizard was stunned when he heard what Susan said. He blinked and said, "So you are just a passerby? No wonder I was indifferent to you standing here. You didn't see us killing this spotted snake?" The scene was thrilling and bloody. We sacrificed 5 or 6 men before we subdued this guy. I was thrown off the cliff by this guy's tail and almost died. Fortunately, a short tree growing on the cliff blocked me and saved my life. Otherwise, I would have been finished. Chapter 474, Shock in the Swamp. After hearing what the little male lizard said, Susan couldn't help but sigh deeply and said, "It seems that it is really not easy for us lizards to eat this delicious snake meat. I didn't expect that we would have to pay such a huge price." After that, he shook his head again. The little male lizard also agreed with him. "Who said it wasn't? But we have to kill this guy. You don't know that before we made up our minds to kill this guy, it had already cruelly devoured several of our guys. We really couldn't bear it anymore, so we resorted to this desperate measure." Susan comforted him and said, "Little brother, don't be sad. Nature is like this, the strong prey on the weak, cruel and ruthless." After saying that, he paused and asked again, "Oh, by the way, little brother, are there any chameleons around you?" "What, chameleons?" the little male lizard asked back without knowing what was going on. "What is a chameleon? I've never heard of it." Chameleons are actually a variant of our lizards, a very unique group. They can change the color of their skin according to changes in the surrounding environment, so that their skin color is consistent with the color of the surrounding environment, so as to achieve the purpose of hiding themselves, Susan explained patiently. "Oh, so that's the case. It sounds like it's very powerful. But I've never seen this thing, and I haven't heard anyone talk about it," the little male lizard said in surprise. "From this, it seems unlikely that there are chameleons in this area of several miles or even dozens of miles." Susan sighed. I have to travel a long way again. What a miserable life. Goodbye, little brother." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked towards the other side of the cliff. The slope on this side was relatively flat, and it was full of various herbs and small trees. There were also a lot of insects living there. It was just time for Susan to find food and eat. Only after eating a full meal could she continue on her way. However, Susan didn't dare to go into the weeds to catch insects foolishly. What if there was a snake or a scorpion hidden deep in the weeds? Wouldn't it hurt her? So, she had to follow the old method, jumping on the deep grass, the leaves of the short trees, and the big rocks, and catching the big locusts and dragonflies that had fallen asleep and liked to rest on the high places of the short trees and weeds. Although she was a big dragonfly in her previous life, she didn't care so much now in order to fill her stomach and survive. She would eat even the big dragonflies. Because the locusts and dragonflies were large and heavy, she was full after eating only a few of them, and then she set out on a journey to find chameleons in high spirits. After going down the mountain, Susan suddenly found that there was a swamp in front of her, with puddles and wetlands with low vegetation everywhere. She thought, if I rashly pass through this swamp, if I encounter snakes and other enemies on the way, I will have no way to escape. Oh. It seems that I will have to take a detour. What a miserable life. Since I plan to take a detour, should I go to the left or to the right? Faced with this thorny problem, Susan felt that she had a big head, because she was not familiar with this area and had no map here to refer to. What should I do? After thinking for a while, Susan finally came up with a solution. Yes. I might as well go back to the top of the big mountain behind me. Isn't it said that standing high and seeing far? When I stood on the top of the mountain just now, it happened to be night, and I couldn't see very far. Although I have night vision, my night vision is far inferior to that of an owl. Maybe I can see farther during the day. If not, I will ask sparrows or swallows, which are small birds that do no harm to us lizards. Anyway, I know a lot of animal languages, including the languages of sparrows and swallows. Having made up her mind, Susan no longer hesitated. She turned 180 degrees, turned her head and walked back, and climbed up the mountain again. However, this time she had to fly over the grass, which was many times more difficult, because last time she went down the mountain, it was very easy to jump from top to bottom, but this time she had to go up the mountain, which was just the opposite, jumping from bottom to top. But would it work? She tried several times in a row, but it didn't work at all. After all, she didn't have wings and didn't have enough ability. It seemed that flying over the grass was not possible, so she had to give up. However, if she crawled on the ground like other lizards, the risk at night would be much greater than during the day. In this case, let's go hiking in broad daylight. Now, while it's still dark and most insects are sleeping in the grass, I should quickly catch more insects and accumulate enough energy so that I can have enough energy to climb the mountain after dawn. Thinking of this, Susan began to catch as many insects as possible to find food. Before long, the night gradually faded away, and the morning light appeared in the sky. The sun followed and illuminated the mountain in front of me. The fresh morning air made Susan feel unprecedented joy, like a song from the bottom of her heart, and with the movement of light and shadow, the color changed instantly. It was as if she was about to start a new life, which made her excited and eager to try. At this time, the mountains and fields were filled with the chirping of various birds, and insects of all sizes woke up. A group of white moths followed a few beautiful butterflies and fluttered around. A group of bees came out buzzing and began to collect pollen. Several large dragonflies circled and chased and flew over the grass. Many grasshoppers and locusts jumped and fluttered one after another. Mantises cunningly hid and ambushed, ready to give a fatal blow to those stupid and ignorant insects. At this time, Susan, who had already eaten and drunk enough, had no interest in the performances of various insects in front of her and turned a blind eye. The only thing she cared about was whether she could climb to the top of the mountain before dark. In the morning, the sun was shining on the side of the mountain, which resulted in a high temperature, suitable for the activities of various insects of all sizes, but not suitable for cold-blooded animals such as snakes, scorpions and spiders. Susan was also moving in the grass and under the trees, so she could not be discovered by eagles and other birds of prey in the sky. At this time, almost all the dangers in the sky and on the ground were eliminated, and it was the best time for her to climb the mountain boldly. 69. However, the afternoon sun gradually moved to the north side of the mountain, that is, the side of the cliff. And Susan began to encounter danger while climbing the mountain. First, around 4 p.m., she suddenly found that at least 3 or 4 poisonous spiders appeared between the small trees and the long grass in front of her, ambushing up and down, left and right, ready to attack her. Seeing that the situation was not good, Susan immediately stopped moving forward, quietly retreated 2 meters, and then took a detour from the right to avoid the trap set by the poisonous spiders. Afterwards, She also cleverly and decisively successfully avoided the ambushes of other poisonous spiders and scorpions 3 times. Despite this, Susan is still not completely out of danger, and a bigger crisis is about to come. Chapter 475, Questioning Swift. Just as dusk was approaching, suddenly, a foul smell floated over from the front and above, and then Susan heard waves of lizards screaming, "Run! The big black snake is coming!" Then, she saw several small lizards running down from above, and one of them even brushed past Susan. At this time, Susan could only follow the crowd and turned around and ran back without any grace. In an instant, she felt a strong fishy wind behind her, and all kinds of weeds fell to both sides. Obviously, a big snake was behind her, and it was estimated that it would catch up with her soon. Oh my God, what should I do? Susan, who was running, was sweating profusely. Suddenly, she found a relatively large white rock on the lower right, so she jumped over the white rock without hesitation, flew down, and landed in the grass at the foot of the white rock. Then she found that there was a small hole at the lower left of the foot of the rock that was big enough for her to get in, so she immediately got in. Then, Susan felt the weeds beside the white rock being crushed by the snake, making rustling sounds. This showed that the big black snake did not jump over the white rock like she did, but went around the rock. This might be because the snake was too heavy to jump, so it had to go around the rock. This gave Susan enough time to hide and escape. After the snake left for a while, Susan came out of the small hole at the foot of the white rock and continued to climb to the top of the mountain. The sky gradually darkened. Finally, she returned to the top of the mountain. It was almost the second watch in the middle of the night, so she hurriedly looked for food, found a small dwarf tree, crawled into the dense canopy, and fell asleep. The next day, when the sun was shining on her buttocks, Susan woke up from her sleep in a daze. She opened her sleepy eyes and immediately felt the dazzling sunlight. It was really late. Then, she opened her eyes wide and looked far away. After a long time, she still couldn't see clearly. It seemed that she had to ask the little bird about the situation. She didn't know what time it was. She only felt that there were no birds singing nearby. On the top of the mountain without big trees or dense forests, would those sparrows, swallows and other small birds fly over? Hey! It was all my fault for oversleeping. I missed the golden moment of birds singing in the early morning. It was useless to regret it now. However, I couldn't blame myself too much. After all, I went down the mountain and climbed the mountain for a whole day and night without rest yesterday. I was really tired. In addition, I was scared of avoiding the big snakes hunting for the last time. I was exhausted physically and mentally, so I overslept. It was understandable. It seems that there is no chance today. Sure enough, not a single bird flew over until the sun went down, as if it was deliberately trying to piss her off. Another morning was approaching. Susan woke up early before dawn, opened her eyes wide, and looked around, afraid of missing a passing bird. It was really annoying. She could only hear various birds singing happily at the foot of the mountain, but not a single bird flew to the top of the mountain. Could it be that the birds had eaten croton seeds last night, so they didn't have the strength to fly to the top of the mountain? Susan felt even more annoyed when she thought about it, but she had no choice but to wait foolishly. In the afternoon, when the sun was setting, suddenly, a large black cloud flew from the horizon. After a while, she saw several swallows flying towards the top of the mountain. This is the so-called low-flying swallows before the rain. Seeing this, Susan was overjoyed. She asked the swallows flying around in front of her in the language of the swallows, "Hey, all the beautiful and handsome swallows, please excuse me, how can I get around the swamp at the foot of the mountain? Is it closer to the forest or hills on the left or the right?" For a long time, she didn't hear even a single swallow answer her question. They continued to fly around in front of her and above her head, doing their own thing. Oh. Susan really didn't expect that now, let alone asking for help from people. Even asking for help from a little bird would be so difficult. So she had to repeat the question again, asking it 3 times in a row, and she was really patient and commendable. Thank God, finally a swallow couldn't stand Susan's chattering anymore and had to answer her question. "You silly thing, why are you so annoying? Don't you see we are rushing to eat mosquitoes and have no time to answer you?" Susan quickly apologized and explained, I'm sorry, I just want to ask which is closer to the forest on the left or the forest on the right." The swallow that answered her continued, "Hey, I can't do anything about you, Silly guy. You can't even ask questions clearly. Let me ask you, what is the left and what is the right? When Susan heard this, she was shocked. It turned out that it was my fault for not explaining it clearly. I have to explain it clearly. Soon, she said, I'm sorry, I didn't make it clear. What I meant was, is this place closer to the forest in the northeast or the forest in the southwest? The swallow thought for a moment and said, of course it's the southwest. There's plenty of rain there, the trees and weeds are lush, and it's close to here. Hearing that the swallow finally told her the information she needed most, Susan couldn't help but be overjoyed and thanked her profusely. Thank you, beautiful swallow, for telling me the truth. Thank you so much. Unexpectedly, the swallow said mischievously, I'm a beauty, not a handsome guy, you silly thing. Susan was too lazy to argue with the female swallow, and said indifferently, whether you are a beauty or a handsome guy, I thank you both. No mistake in the poem. Post, content, read in 169, book, forum. After the statement, the female swallow had nothing to say. Soon, heavy rain came, and it got heavier and heavier. The swallow flew away just as the heavy rain started. Susan was very happy with the information provided by the female swallow. As soon as the heavy rain stopped, she went down the mountain and headed to the right, that is, southwest, bypassing the swamp in front of her to continue her journey to find chameleons. When the heavy rain stopped completely and it was completely dark, Susan began to move. She went down the mountain in the same way as last time, but what she didn't expect was that the deep grass and short leaves that had just rained were very slippery. If she was not careful, she would slide down from them to the ground. She often broke out in a cold sweat, fearing that she would be ambushed by scorpions and snakes and other animals in the grass. Fortunately, she was lucky this time and went down the mountain safely and came to the foot of the mountain. Then, Susan turned to the southwest and began to bypass the large swamp in front of her. Before she reached the large forest in the southwest, she still encountered danger. Once, when she jumped onto a tall blade of grass and was about to jump forward, she suddenly discovered that there was a small snake entwined on the big rock in front of her. Although the snake was small, who knew if it was poisonous or not? Was it a treacherous and cunning venomous snake? This made Susan uneasy and hesitant. In the end, to be on the safe side, she turned around and jumped back twice to bypass the big rock occupied by the unknown snake. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.